Chapter 2774. Auntie Lee, they're at least your relatives, right? I'm just an outsider. You don't seem to be very careful about giving me the Chingy sex books. Li Qing smiled. In her eyes, Qin Zhao was different from her relatives. Her relatives would only kick her when she was down. Qin Zhao and Ethan, on the other hand, had helped her in her most difficult time. In Li Qing's eyes, Qin Zhao and Ethan were her real family. She didn't hate the people in power in the Maoshan sect. She was born in a family in the spiritual world in Huaxia. She was familiar with the battles in the spiritual world. Moreover, the Maoshan sect and the Black Cloth cult didn't kill them all. Instead, it was her relatives who attacked her. In the end, she was forced to flee abroad to seek refuge. All right, you're just afraid that I'll be upset, right? Don't worry. I won't be sad even if you kill him. I might even thank you. Qin Zhao heaved a sigh of relief. He still cared about Li Qing's opinion. After all, he'd made her nephew half dead. Oh, that girl is also a fellow cultivator, right? Auntie Lee, you can tell? That's weird. All of them. Why can't I tell? Her breathing technique is quite advanced. She's like the Huaxia clan. You're saying she's from the Huaxia clan? Probably, Li Qing said. She's quite talented. She's probably a talent. Why? Does your supernatural organization plan to recruit her? She was the young mistress of the Huaxia clan that West wanted him to save. Qin Zhao didn't think that he'd found the right person by a fluke. I'll get someone to come and talk to her tomorrow, Qin Zhao said. She's related to the supernatural organization. It's a fluke this time. Oh, I brought this from China. It's for you, Auntie Lee. Qin Zhao took out a gift box. Look at you. You brought something from so far away. Li Qing didn't reject it. Qin Zhao's sincerity was enough for her. Also, with her understanding of Qin Zhao, he wouldn't give anything too expensive. When he got home, he heard Portia yelling inside. Seeing Qin Zhao come in, Portia rushed to him. Boss, who did you invite? We went out for 20 days, but when we came back, the house wasn't messed up at all. Princess and the others didn't destroy anything either. What's so strange about that? The princess and the others have always been very obedient. Qin Zhao rolled his eyes and kissed Feilai. Okay, you and Refra haven't been home for a long time. Go back too. I'll give you a day off tomorrow. Boss, 1 day is not enough. No, it's enough. If you don't want to be behind on your credit card this month, you shouldn't have asked for so many days off. Credit cards were Portia's eternal pain. Don't worry, I have Refra. She will lend me money. Zevra, who was busy taking things out of her suitcase, raised her head and said, There's interest. Don't all of you have any sympathy? Everyone chuckled. Giving you sympathy is worse than feeding it to a dog. Boss, where is this thing? It's mine. Celestial Master Zhang gave it to me. Feilai immediately went up and took the incense burner from Zevra's hands. Then she started chanting to herself. Guide with the wind, believe against the wind, say goodbye to each other. Qin Zhao pursed his lips. Something from old Zhang might have some tricks up its sleeve. It's better to throw it away. Qin Zhao couldn't understand Feilai's Taoist mantra, but Zevra understood. Boss, Feilai's incense burner is a Taoist long chant burner. What's so special about this incense burner? When ancient people prayed in Taoist temples, they used the fortune burner to burn incense and pray. Another way is to invite blessings home. The Taoist temple will give out a child cauldron, which is this kind of long chant burner. Feilai is chanting the heavenly Lord Hong, great fortune scripture. Zevra, you actually know so much about religious culture? Portia looked at Zevra in surprise. Qin Zhao wasn't surprised at all. What was Zevra's job? A former dragon slayer. She was a straight woman who had personally killed a giant dragon. Understanding the religious culture around the world was child's play. After all, many of the weapons used by dragon slayers included all the religions around the world. Some weapons even required one to be familiar with religious knowledge. After working for a while, Zevra and Portia were chased home by Qin Zhao. Then it was the underlings' turn. They were experts at housework. In the 20 days that Qin Zhao wasn't around, they took care of the pets. That was why they didn't rush into the city to eat people. His family was already used to the underlings' existence. They were also used to the underlings taking care of their daily lives. In terms of housework, even the diligent Zevra couldn't compare to any of the underlings. There was no need to mention the lazy Portia. So, Qin Zhao sent the two back. "Darling, it's almost summer. Let's move to Moon Villa," Feilai said. "Sure." Moon Villa was used to avoid summer. The coastline there was more suitable for summer activities. Mirror Lake Villa wouldn't be hot either. However, it was precisely because Mirror Lake Manor's greenery was too lush that the sunlight was basically blocked. If they wanted sunlight, they had to either go to the lake or the grassland behind. If they wanted sunlight, their first choice was Moon Villa. Qin Zhao thought about it and decided to wait for a month or so. He would move in April when the temperature rose. The next day, Qin Zhao drove Feilai to Angel Beach. When Robio saw Qin Zhao, he immediately pulled Qin Zhao over to chat. "Qin, how was your trip back?" "I've already donated so much money to the coastal rescue team. Can't you just hire more people? Even if you can't find someone who can replace Feilai, you can just hire 8 or 10 more. You need speed to save people on the shoreline. If you can swim 5 seconds faster in the waves, the drowning person's chance of survival will increase by 5%. Feilai can swim 30 seconds faster than other lifeguards at 300 meters from the shoreline. This means that no one in the world can replace her. Even if you invite the swimming legend Evely, she won't be as good as Feilai. That's not a reason to enslave her. Hey, we're doing a very meaningful job, not enslaving her. She comes home exhausted every day. Then why don't you say that she gets more vacation than other lifeguards? Her vacation was bought by my donation. As the best lifeguard, isn't it natural for her to get more vacation than others?" Chapter 2775. Qin Zhao and Robio's argument would never come to a conclusion. Qin Zhao naturally didn't want Feilai to work so hard every day. She might even be in danger. After all, saving people wasn't just about swimming fast. Sometimes drowning people would drag the lifeguard into the deep water. Therefore, every time they saved a person, the lifeguards risked their own lives. Qin Zhao would rather Feilai go shopping in the mall every day, or she could start her own company. No matter if it was good or not, at least her life wouldn't be in danger. She wouldn't have to fight against the sea every day. Indeed, Feilai's body was already stronger than normal people's. But she was still human. She wasn't Superman. Feilai was a normal person, so she couldn't control supernatural powers. So, Qin Zhao had Black Ma and White Ma accompany Feilai every day. At least, they could be Feilai's helpers. When necessary, they could also be Feilai's protector. Robio's philosophy was the same as Feilai's. They both felt that their careers were great and sacred. So, this was something Qin Zhao couldn't do anything about. Of course, this wasn't the first time they'd argued like this. It was meaningless because they couldn't influence the individual will of the people involved. And the two of them would only limit their argument to the two of them. In the eyes of the bystanders, the two of them were just chatting happily. Just then, Qin Zhao and Robio realized that a group of people had come to the beach. They looked around with perverted hands and feet. They looked like thieves. The only thing missing was the word bad written on their faces. They spread out and occasionally came to the side of the lone tourists on the beach. They secretly took out some things to communicate with the lone tourists. "Who are they?" Qin Zhao asked. Robio's expression darkened. "I don't know. They didn't exist before. They only appeared recently. I've called the police a few times, but we can't get rid of them completely." Disgust was written all over Robio's face. They didn't exist before. This is a public area. How could anyone dare to sell these things here? But it's happening now. I don't understand what's going on either. These D*Ned scum are polluting Angel Beach. Then urge the police or report this to the media. This should give the police more motivation to investigate. Also, protect Phalai. I don't care what happens to Angel Coast. As long as Phalai doesn't get involved, everything will be fine. It's not just her. The coastal rescue team is a big family. I won't let any member get involved in this. If there's any trouble that you can't solve, contact me at any time. Chen Zhao patted Robio's shoulder. I don't want to care about Angel Coast's trouble, but if it's Phalai's working environment, I have no reason to stand aside. West, gather our men. I'll head to the headquarters later. Guild leader, you promised to help me protect the refining god sex princess. Yet you returned just like that. I'm really disappointed in you. If you continue to be so long-winded with me, I'll buy a plane ticket to fly back to Huaxia and strangle that bullshit princess of yours. As expected, West stopped talking. He was truly panicking. It was fine if the traitors of the refining god sect chased after their ally's daughter. But if he, the guild leader's daughter, was involved, would she still have a chance to live? What a joke. Her corpse could be exposed in the wilderness at any time. She would be lucky to have an intact corpse. He knew that most of Qin Zhao's enemies didn't even have a corpse left. And the enemies that had the most number of intact corpses were the dragons. When Chen Zhao arrived at the headquarters, he heard the mechanical sounds of the construction site in the distance. West walked out. Guild leader. Why is the construction site so loud recently? It can't be helped. After all, it's building an airport. Even if it's a small one, it's still a huge project, West said helplessly. Guild leader about the refining god sect. I brought her back to Los Angeles. You can contact her yourself tomorrow. Guild leader, you found her. Of course. Huaxia is my base. Finding someone is a piece of cake. Chen Zhao was too embarrassed to say that he'd just met the person by chance. West was overjoyed. He didn't think that Chen Zhao would really find her and bring her to Los Angeles. How many people are here? Nagasaka Reiko went back to Japan for New Year. She's not back yet, but the others are already here. Qin Zhao knew that Nagasaka Reiko had gone back to Japan. He'd approved it too. Okay, that's it. I need to ask about something. When Chen Zhao arrived at the conference room, he first had someone set up a soundproof barrier. He wasn't afraid that their conversation would be leaked. He just didn't want to be disturbed by the noise of the construction machines nearby. Do any of you have any news about the recent abnormal gang activity in LA? Chen Zhao asked directly. What, President? Are we still going to get involved in the gang's fight? Jalanesh asked. If it's the old gang, I don't mind. Chen Zhao glanced at Jalanesh. But the premise is that this gang's activities are always within my tolerance range. They don't commit crimes without restraint right under my nose. There was one more thing Chen Zhao didn't mention. The gang leader was someone he knew. After returning to Los Angeles, Chen Zhao had called Morgari several times, but all of them were dead. He couldn't pick up. Chen Zhao felt that Morgari might already be dead. Chen Zhao actually didn't care much about Morgari's life or death. If he really had to talk about it, Morgari deserved to die. He wasn't a gentleman. In fact, he wasn't even a good person. As a gang member, if he killed someone today, someone else would kill him the next day. Wasn't that natural? Chen Zhao had never thought about helping him take revenge. Right now, Chen Zhao just wanted to drag out the body of the bastard who'd made L.A. such a mess. As for whether L.A. could return to peace after he was dead, Chen Zhao never doubted that. There were always people who thought that there was white and black in the world. That was pure nonsense. Why could China maintain good law and order? Why can't it be done in the U.S.? As a Chinese, Chen Zhao felt that as long as he was determined, law and order wouldn't be a problem. If killing one bastard wasn't enough, he would kill 10. If 10 wasn't enough, he would kill 100. He would kill until rivers of blood flowed and people panicked. He didn't believe that there would be any stupid thoughts of mixing black and white. Chapter 2776. I have some information on hand, Ruan Faxben said. He had the most connections among the members of the supernatural organization. After all, he was an alchemist, and many alchemy materials had to be purchased through special channels. Therefore, he had contact with people from all walks of life. Tell me, what information do you have? When I went to the alchemy shop I was familiar with to buy materials, the shop owner told me that the Wild Boar King, the ruler of the underground world in Los Angeles, was going to make a big move recently, and some supplies might be out of stock, so he asked me to buy more. I didn't take it to heart, but in 10 days, the Wild Boar King suddenly disappeared. Then, a few foreign gangs began to fight in Los Angeles. Just half a month ago, the dispute suddenly stopped. Dozens of people died, and the England gang from Ohio won. The England gang belongs to the most radical faction in the underworld. They advocate using chaos to gain benefits. The Wild Boar King also provides alchemy materials? Chen Zhao was surprised. In fact, most of the alchemy materials are on the list of prohibited items, and those gangs don't know the actual use of these prohibited items. They only think that it's profitable, so they transport and take the underground route. You said that the Wild Boar King is going to make a big move? What's the big move? I don't know about that. Maybe it's to expand their territory, or maybe it's to do some big business. Anyway, these gangsters can't do anything big. It's not like they're going to steal S-class nuclear warheads. After all, Ruan Faxi was not a gangster. Most of what he knew came from his contacts in the spiritual world. However, the spiritual world and the gangs were two worlds that did not have much interaction. Therefore, the information that Ruan Faxi could provide was very limited. Chen Zhao had hoped to get enough information from the supernatural organization. Unfortunately, the supernatural organization belonged to the supernatural world. Almost no one paid attention to the gang's movements. Come to think of it, no matter what happened to the gangs in Los Angeles, no matter how chaotic the situation outside was, it had no effect on them. Even if those gangs appeared in front of them, they wouldn't be able to escape. They also had the ability to protect themselves. No, not the ability to protect himself. It was the ability to blast the people on the other side into dregs. Chen Zhao looked at West. West, if I start a massacre on the Black Gang, will there be any trouble? People can go missing, but not rivers of blood, West explained briefly. What he meant was that the gang members could disappear en masse. But he couldn't allow someone to discover dozens, or even more corpses, one morning. There was a world of difference between the two. Guild leader, I can help you in this regard, Harrell said calmly. Most of Helitha's opponents belonged to the category of people who did not even have a corpse left. They were definitely missing persons cases. Of course, apart from the fact that there were no corpses left, she also had a hobby of collecting corpses. Whether it was a complete corpse or a skeleton, she was happy to add it to her collection. If there is a need in this area, I will call you. Chen Zhao was more than willing to turn everything into dust himself instead of adding items to Helis' collection. After all, there were times when Horus did not have enough space in the Dead Soul space. She would always use certain places as temporary warehouses. For example, the HQ's food freezer or material warehouse. Anyway, it would definitely be a place that people didn't like. Guild leader, Jalanash said proudly. I've learned a few powerful spells recently. I can also help you solve your problem. Guild leader, I'm also good at killing people. If necessary, I can chop your enemies into pieces that can be flushed into the toilet, Dongya, Tianchi said. In this meeting room, there were always violent people. What they were best at was the technology of destruction that surpassed human knowledge. This had nothing to do with their strength. For example, the powerful Norma. Her strength was considered one of the best. She was also good at killing people, but she could not destroy someone physically like the others. Up until now, Norma was still as pure as a little lamb. She was one of the few people who had not killed anyone yet. Guild leader, when are you going to clean up the asterisk's holes in Mountain Town? My uncle's restaurant has been harassed by a few groups of gangsters recently, Lynn Beyonce said, gritting her teeth. If possible, I still want to solve the problem at the source. It's not good to have too many people die. Everyone glanced at Chen Zhao and then avoided his gaze, remaining silent. To them, Chen Zhao was the least qualified person to say something like that. Even the newest newcomer, Lynn Beyonce, had witnessed Chen Zhao's bloody massacre. Fine. I just want to reduce the trouble as much as possible. Chen Zhao shrugged. Only then did everyone accept Chen Zhao's explanation. They all knew that Chen Zhao was afraid of trouble. West. Find out how many gangs are in LA, their distribution, and the number of members. Oh, can we collect their assets for our expenses? Not under normal circumstances. What do you mean by normal circumstances? It's normal for people to find out. As long as they're not found out, it's fine. Then collect their boss's assets. I don't think anyone will object to us taxing the gangs. Just then, Aduz knocked on the meeting room door. Aduz came in with Felwood Sko. Boss, Mr. Felwood is here. Felwood, hello. Chen Zhao glanced at the people in the meeting room. Today's meeting is over. Let's end it here. Hello, Mr. Chen. Felwood Sko shook hands with Chen Zhao. Let's take a walk outside, Chen Zhao said. Okay. Chen Zhao and Felwood Sko went to the artificial lake beside the headquarters. Felwood, how's the progress at the airport? It's going well, but it's a bit noisy. Mr. Chen, is it affecting your company's work? It's all right. It's a bit noisy, but the headquarters has soundproof glass, so it won't affect my employees' work. But it's best to control the dust. I'll try my best. It was troublesome to control the dust at the construction site, and it would cost more. But as long as it was a request from Chen Zhao, Felwood Sko had to consider it carefully no matter how troublesome it was. Mr. Chen, have you booked your plane? I've been busy lately, so I haven't had time to book it. What? Do you have any recommendations? I wouldn't dare to recommend anything, but I have a private gathering. 2 executives from the aircraft manufacturers will be attending. If you have time, I'd like to invite you. Chapter 2777. Felwood Sko didn't want to recommend Chen Zhao's private plane. In fact, the plane manufacturers found out that Felwood Sko was building a private airport for a rich person. That was why they asked Felwood Sko to recommend Chen Zhao. These manufacturers promised that if Chen Zhao bought their planes, they would give Felwood Sko a generous commission. But Felwood Sko was very clear about this. His main business was construction, not the commission for selling planes. That was why Felwood Sko only agreed to recommend Chen Zhao. Therefore, Felwood Sko only agreed to help with the referral. He didn't recommend any plane. Referral and recommendation were 2 different concepts. What the referral meant was, this is my friend who sells XXX products and wants to be friends with you. Recommendation was much more direct. My friend sells XXX products. You can consider their products. No matter how generous the plane manufacturers were, Felwood Sko wouldn't put the cart before the horse. After all, what Chen Zhao gave him was the foundation of a construction company. It wasn't a small profit like the commission. After all, a private plane was only tens of millions of dollars. The plane manufacturers wouldn't give him a commission of 10% or more. But the projects Chen Zhao gave him all had a profit of 20% or more. Also, he had the initiative in this kind of cooperation. After all, Felwood Sko was confident that his projects would be of high quality. But the quality of the planes the plane manufacturers sold to Chen Zhao was controlled by someone else. What time? Tonight. If it's not convenient, Mr. Chen, we can reschedule. Tonight? Sure. Chen Zhao accepted the invitation, although he didn't really like these gatherings. Still, he was very satisfied with the cooperation with Felwood Sko. So he gave Felwood Sko some face. Chen Zhao chatted with Felwood Sko for a while longer. Felwood Sko promised to finish before the end of the year. Of course, if Chen Zhao needed to rush the deadline, He could also think of a way to build in stages and use a part of the airport first. This was all because he treated Chen Zhao differently. As long as Chen Zhao needed something, he could satisfy it. Felwood Sko was a busy man. Chen Zhao had things to do too. Then, Chen Zhao headed to the city. Ami Street. It was an old street. Most of the facilities were from the 70s and 80s. They looked rather old. There weren't many cars on the streets. Most of the shops along the street were closed. Even if they did open their doors, most of them had broken signboards. Chen Zhao drove back and forth on the street. After some time, he finally saw a gun shop. There was no sign at the door. If he hadn't seen the inside, he wouldn't have been able to find the gun shop. In fact, most of the shops on this street were supported by regular customers. Regular customers didn't need a signboard, and strangers wouldn't come here anyway. There were some guns hanging on the counter and walls of the gun shop, but most of the space was empty. It seemed that not only was the business bad here, but it was also about to close down. Seeing Chen Zhao come in, the owner lifted his eyelids. The one on the left is $80, the one in the middle is $120, and the ones over there are $200 to $300. The ones with labels are all legal, and the ones without labels are all illegal. Choose for yourself. Don't I need to register? In the United States, one needed a gun license to buy a gun. If there was even the slightest violation of the law, it would be canceled. Simply put, if the government thinks you're dangerous, then you can't carry a gun. Even if they could buy a gun, they would need to register it. The gun's model, caliber, production date, certificate, as well as the buyer's identity. You drive such a good car, you must be a rich man. A rich man coming here to buy a gun is definitely not to buy a gun through the legal channels. Or maybe he's not here to buy a gun at all. The shop owner yawned and said in an extremely lazy tone. The shop owner was obviously an experienced man. He could basically tell the background of the buyers who entered the shop with just a glance. But looking at Chen Zhao, he didn't really understand. After all, no rich people had ever come to his shop. Even if rich people really needed illegal guns, they'd get someone to buy them for them. They wouldn't have to buy them themselves. So, the owner was more inclined to think that this Asian was here to buy information. Ethan recommended me. He said that you can give me some information I need. The owner looked Chen Zhao up and down. You know that my fees are very expensive. Cash or check? Card is accepted. The owner took out the POS machine and placed it before Chen Zhao. What information do you want? Is the wild boar king dead or alive? Chen Zhao asked. Are you his friend or enemy? Is there a difference? My fees are very fair. If you're his friend, it's very expensive. If you're his enemy, it's even more expensive. Ha! It's indeed very fair. We're friends, Chen Zhao said. I left L.A. for more than 20 days. When I came back, I suddenly realized that L.A. seems to have changed. I can't contact the Wild Boar King either. $100,000. The owner pushed the POS machine to Chen Zhao. Chen Zhao swiped his credit card on it. Dead. Chen Zhao's face darkened. Are you messing with me? I said that my fees for information are all public, the owner said nonchalantly. I didn't force you. Then what about his wild boar? The shop owner saw the POS machine being delivered to Chen Zhao again. It's dead too. How? That boar has thick skin. It won't die so easily. Even a Terminator would be destroyed if it's being shot at by a dozen machine guns, let alone a pig. Chen Zhao didn't know how he should accept this. Victoria was the name Morgary had given it, but Chen Zhao was the one who created it. Although Victoria didn't belong to Chen Zhao. However, Chen Zhao still had deep feelings for it. If only he could predict its current ending. Perhaps Chen Zhao would take Victoria back. How did Morgary die? Air crash. You're saying that the gangs in L.A. have the ability to cause a plane crash? Chen Zhao didn't believe the shop owner. What a joke! Causing an air crash was basically as difficult as starting a war. If the LA gangs could really do it, Qin Zhao wouldn't have to deal with them. The government would be the first to eliminate them. Of course, it's impossible to cause a plane crash in Los Angeles. But what if it was in Africa? Africa? You said Morgary went to Africa? Morgary received news that there was a diamond mine in Sierra Leone that was occupied by the rebels. The rebels did not intend to develop it. Instead, they sent out invitations to wealthy businessmen from all over the world to auction off the diamond mine. Morgary was attracted there, and then a plane crash happened. Chapter 2778. In other words, this is fake news. I don't know if it's fake or not, but Morgary's death is definitely not an accident. Is the LA gang completely controlled by the England gang now? Most of them are. There's still a few streets that aren't completely controlled, but the original rulers of those streets have already been defeated. They're not far from complete control. Give me the details of the England gang. This information is expensive, very expensive. How much? $1 million. If you can afford it, I'll even tell you what color underwear their boss is wearing today. Chen Zhao swiped $1 million. You don't have to tell me what color underwear their boss is wearing today. No, I mean what I say, the boss said firmly. When can I get the information I want? It'll take some time. How long? I'm very busy. Or you can organize the information and send it to my email. 30 minutes. So fast? Chen Zhao had thought that it would take at least a few days. He didn't think that it would only be 30 minutes. Was this some time? I could give it to you immediately, but I have to get the information on what color underwear the boss of the England gang is wearing today. Chen Zhao's face darkened. The boss laughed out loud. I'm just kidding. Just give me a few minutes. I'll organize the documents. A few minutes later, the boss printed the documents and handed them to Chen Zhao. Chen Zhao was about to leave when the boss suddenly called him. Sir, what is it? I don't know what you're planning to do with these documents. Maybe you're planning to take revenge for Morgary, but you better be careful. The England gang is a bit abnormal. Abnormal? What's abnormal? They're a group of extremely vicious thugs, the boss said meaningfully. Isn't that normal? I never expected them to be kindergartners. No, you don't understand what I mean. They're very good at killing, and they are very bloodthirsty. They are far more cruel than normal gangs. The shop owner looked at the calm Chen Zhao and said, Maybe you have some extraordinary ability, but you should still remember my words. Especially the core members of the England gang. They have committed many terrible crimes in Ohio and the border cities of the Maple Leaf Kingdom. They have also been attacked by professional mercenaries, but in the end they were unscathed. The mercenaries who attacked them have now disappeared. Thank you for your kind reminder. Smiling, Chen Zhao walked out of the gun shop. The owner watched as Chen Zhao left. That guy was too confident. Could it be that the other party really had something special about him? Or could it be that his information had slipped away? The shop owner typed Chen Zhao's name into his computer. Chen Zhao had never told him his name, but the signature on the credit card receipt was Boss. The shop owner had been seriously searching for information on Chen Zhao. Suddenly hearing the sound of Chen Zhao's return, he was startled. Why did you come back? Don't try to find my information and don't keep it. After all, I already investigated you before buying information from you. You don't want me to spend $10 million to kill you and your family, right? Fine. The shop owner shrugged helplessly. Sir, you misunderstood. Regardless, I don't want this misunderstanding to happen again. I promise, the shop owner said sincerely. There won't be a next time. He knew that some people were very dangerous. For example, they would use a fruit knife to cut open their carotid artery while they were sleeping. Or they would use a lot of money to hire someone to cut open their carotid artery with a fruit knife, so much that even they would be tempted. Therefore, for the safety of his family, the shop owner decided to erase all evidence of Chen Zhao's visit. It's nice to talk to smart people. Goodbye. Goodbye, sir. The shop owner sent Chen Zhao to the car. Only when Chen Zhao's sports car left his sight did the shop owner's expression change. They didn't have to face bullets in their line of work. However, the danger was no less than the professions fighting on the front lines. There weren't many ways to reduce the danger. One of them was to put away one's curiosity. Curiosity would kill people like them. Don't investigate people you shouldn't investigate. You'd really die. The shop owner dared to sell information about the English gang. That was because most people in the underworld knew about the English gang. The most he could provide was more secretive information. So, even if the English gang was attacked, they wouldn't know who sold them. There were too many people in LA who had information about them and were selling them. The shop owner wasn't the first person to have information about the English gang, but people like Chen Zhao were different. That kind of extravagant style was indeed very charming when it came to paying the bill. However, if he paid the assassins, it wouldn't be so fun. Moreover, the shop owner didn't just feel that Chen Zhao was rich. He also sensed danger from Chen Zhao. In fact, during their entire conversation, the shop owner had been hiding one hand under the table. There was a rifle stuck under the table. Thankfully, the thing he was worried about didn't happen. After Chen Zhao returned home, he took out the information he'd bought. However, the first thing was what color underwear the boss of the English gang was wearing today. Chen Zhao thought for a long time. Should he hire someone to kill the shop owner? But after some thought, he decided not to. That bastard wasn't worth that much money. Milo Tanzik Williams, the boss of the English gang. He wasn't old, only 33 years old. But he'd controlled the English gang for a long time, 16 years. Since he was 17, he'd taken over the English gang from his father. In 16 years, he'd replaced all the elders from his father's era. More accurately, all the elders from his father's era had gone missing, including his father. Chen Zhao had to admit that Milo Tanzik Williams was really ruthless. He was even like this to his father. There was no direct evidence that he'd done it, but some things didn't need evidence. However, when Chen Zhao read the following content, his expression changed. There was indeed something wrong with the English gang. Not only was there something wrong, but it was a concentration camp for lunatics. Chapter 2779. According to the report, there were 12 core members in the England gang. You didn't have to be good at fighting to become a core member. You didn't have to have many connections or be experienced. You didn't have to do anything. As long as you could do one thing, you could become a core member. Kill your wife and children. If you didn't have a wife and children, kill your parents. That was why Chen Zhao felt that the gang was a madman's gang. No wonder the gun shop owner had said that. The England gang was so cruel that it didn't make sense. Even a gang wouldn't have such a rule. In fact, most of the gang members in this world only wanted to survive. Only a few did it for profit. These were the facts that everyone knew. Perhaps there would also be those with abnormal minds who would kill to satisfy their own madness. It wasn't incomprehensible. After all, there were all kinds of birds in a big forest. But no gang was willing to recruit madmen. The England gang was the opposite. They didn't just recruit madmen. It looks more like a lunatic has taken control of the entire gang. In this world, there was only one reason for the existence of all the gangs, and that was profit. But Chen Zhao didn't think that killing indiscriminately, even killing one's family, wouldn't bring about profit. Other than proving that they were madmen, they wouldn't get anything. Were they going to use such crazy actions to scare their opponents? Chen Zhao felt that while they were madmen, they probably weren't idiots. After thinking for a while, Chen Zhao decided to show the report to West. This gang was clearly abnormal, very abnormal. Not long after sending it to West, West called back. "President, is this the England gang?" "Yes, you saw the report, right? What do you think?" "It's really a creepy gang. It's the scariest organization I've ever seen. It's even more evil and terrifying than some evil organizations in the spiritual world." "Do you think the England gang is related to some organization in the spiritual world? Or some shoemaker cult?" It seems possible. Chen Zhao had wanted to go straight to the root of the gang and wipe it out. But now he dispelled that idea. If it was just a personal hobby of the boss of the English gang, Chen Zhao didn't mind giving him a few more days to live. If they had other forces behind them, Chen Zhao wouldn't mind killing a few more. In any case, it would be a waste of food to leave such a thing in the human world. In the evening, Chen Zhao received another call from Fellwood to confirm if Chen Zhao had left. Chen Zhao was quite serious about punctuality. Chen Zhao didn't like being late. He didn't like making people wait. When he arrived at Fellwood Sko's villa, there were already many guests. Fellwood Sko's house was not small either. He was a rich man himself. Moreover, in the past 2 years, his company's business had expanded and made a lot of money. "Welcome, Mr. Chen." "Thank you." Fellwood held his wife's arm and introduced them to Chen Zhao. His wife, Ayuna Delia, looked to be about the same age as Fellwood Sko. She was a gentle and dignified woman. Then he entered the villa. Fellwood introduced his 2 children to Chen Zhao, a 14-year-old boy and a 7-year-old girl. Fellwood Sko had put a lot of effort into the party. After that, the guests arrived one after another. Fellwood couldn't stay with Chen Zhao the whole time. After greeting Chen Zhao, he went to welcome the other guests. Before long, Fellwood Sko and an old man with silver hair walked over. "Mr. Chen, allow me to introduce you to my friend Bingerly Lang, the vice president of Northern Gravity. This is Zhao, a successful entrepreneur and the owner of Dashin Beer. Hello, Mr. Bin Gale." "Hello, Mr. Chen. I'm a loyal customer of your beer." Although Bingley Lang wasn't young, he was very relaxed. Even though Chen Zhao knew why he had asked Fellwood Scott to introduce him to him, Chen Zhao didn't care. He didn't go straight to the point. Instead, he used a friendly tone to get closer to Chen Zhao. "Another friend is here. I'll go greet them first. You guys talk." Fellwood Sko gave Chen Zhao and Bingerly some space to chat privately. Bingo Lang took the initiative to talk to Chen Zhao about wine. They also talked about the various types of alcohol in China. He seemed to think that since Chen Zhao was a beer producer, he should be very familiar with and interested in alcohol culture. After talking about alcohol for more than 10 minutes, Bingerly Lang finally entered the main topic. "Mr. Chen, I heard that you're considering buying a private jet?" "Yes, that's my plan." Even without Fellwood Sko's gathering, Chen Zhao planned to start evaluating private jet manufacturers. "Mr. Chen, do you have any planes in mind? Or do you have any plans?" "Not yet. You know that I'm just a beer seller. I'm still very unfamiliar with planes." "Do you think Northern Gravity's products can satisfy your needs?" "I'm not very familiar with your company's products yet." "Then, Mr. Chen, do you mind if I take some time to introduce our products to you?" "Of course. I'll try to skip the professional knowledge." "Of course not. Actually, I'm quite interested. First, may I ask what price you've considered? A large plane or super large plane? I'm more inclined to build a sky villa. Ignoring the price of the interior design, I can accept the basic price within $1 billion. 2 medium-sized planes that can carry at least 15 passengers and require a certain amount of entertainment and rest space. Each unit should be within $100 million. 1 seaplane and 1 helicopter. Bingerly Lang's eyes shone with passion. This was a big order. "Mr. Chen, Northern Gravity's main products are large planes and super large planes. Currently, we have one. 44% of the world's large commercial planes, and our market satisfaction is as high as 95%, much higher than Boeing and Airbus." What Bingerly Lang meant was that while they sold fewer planes, their products were better. However, this also showed the difference between Northern Gravity and aviation giants like Boeing and Airbus. Boeing and Airbus's market share was more than 30% and 20%, respectively. The 2 giants combined had more than 60% of the market. On the other hand, Northern Gravity only had a pitiful 44%. Because of this, as the vice president, Bingerly Lang had to personally promote their products, because every order was crucial to them. Chapter 2780. The gravity of the North naturally had its advantages. For example, their engine technology could be super silent. This was an advantage that other manufacturers didn't have. There was also the price of the plane. Compared to the giants in the aviation industry, Northern Gravity's products were cheap and good. Just then, Felwood Scoe brought 2 more people over. "Huh, Mr. Chin, what are you talking about?" One of them asked. "You are." Chin Zhao wasn't surprised that they knew him. After all, they were all rich people. There were many rich people in America, but not many were as rich as Chin Zhao. Chin Zhao had attended a few rich gatherings and occasionally met some people at the gatherings. Basically, he would look up and then forget about them. "Did you forget about Ms. Zola's party last time?" "Oh, Mr. Lijuoma, hello. I'm sorry I didn't recognize you immediately. Are you talking about planes? Do you mind if we join?" Lijuoma asked, smiling. Bingale was naturally unhappy, but he couldn't do anything about it. After all, he wasn't the owner or the main character of the night. "Mr. Lijuoma, do you know about planes too? I'm a private plane agent." Lijuoma smiled at him. "You can buy planes from all manufacturers, including Mr. Bingale's Northern Gravity products. Then Mr. Lijuoma must know a lot about planes too." "Not really. I'm only familiar with them. If you're talking about research, it's Professor Singit beside me. He's an expert in aerodynamics and mechanics. He's also my professional consultant." Lijuoma had clearly come prepared. He'd even brought an expert. "So if I tell you the functions and uses that I need, will Professor Singit be able to tell me the one that suits me the best?" "Everyone has their own opinions. I can't say that my answer is correct. I can only use my professional knowledge and personal opinion to recommend the most suitable one for you, Mr. Chin." As expected of an academic, Singit was very careful with his words. "Mr. Chin, why don't you try? Okay, what I need is a spacious plane that can allow my family and even my pets to move around. At the same time, there must be enough space for me to rest, eat, and even take a shower on the plane without feeling cramped. I hope that what I can do in my villa can also be done on the plane." "What's the price?" Professor Singit asked. "The budget is around $500 million, but if there's a better choice, the price can be adjusted." "Mr. Chin, $500 million is enough to buy 2 C-17 cargo planes. Of course, the C-17 cargo plane is not suitable to be used as a private plane. Although the C-17 cargo plane has excellent long-distance flight capabilities, load capacity, and internal space, the loud engine noise makes even the crew have to wear soundproof headphones, so it's very difficult to use it as a private plane. Mr. Chin, what you want is a palace in the sky, so there are still a few large planes that meet your requirements. For example, the Boeing 747-8. This plane's most famous advertisement is that it's the flying car of the President of the United States. Another example is the Airbus A380 and A321, which are typical palaces in the sky. So what are the advantages and disadvantages of the 3 you mentioned? First of all, in terms of price, the A321 was developed and produced 20 years ago. 20 years is the time when the aviation industry is changing, so the price is relatively affordable. The price of a Bear plane is between $110 million to $120 million. Secondly, the Boeing 747-8 exists as the opposite of the Airbus A380. This is a competition between the 2 civil aviation giants, so the price and performance of the 2 can be compared in all aspects. It's also the most representative large civil aircraft of this era. The more Professor Singit said, the angrier Lang's face became. But it was difficult for him to refute because Professor Singit didn't mention his product at all. And that was the most embarrassing thing about Bingerly Lang. The price of the Boeing 747-8 is around $350 million, while the Airbus 380 is close to $450 million. In terms of price, the Boeing 747-8 is naturally more affordable, but the Airbus A380 is actually better in this aspect. In terms of range, interior space, noise, flying speed, and even fuel consumption, the Airbus A380 is undoubtedly the top technology. The Boeing 747-8 is actually an upgraded version of the old 747. There's no leap in technology, just optimization. Mr. Chin, your plane can't be changed every 2 years. It will be used for the next 20 years, or even longer. After 20 years, you won't still be using technology from 40 years ago, right? Chen Zhao nodded in agreement. Just then, Bingo Lang could not help but say, "Our S-10 is also a new generation of technology and model." Professor Singit raised his hand and waved. "We're about to talk about the S-10. Mr. Lang, please calm down." Lang's expression didn't improve because Professor Singit wasn't his man. Therefore, he couldn't control what the professor said. S-10 Super Civil Aircraft. Am I right? Bingri Lang nodded. Professor Singit continued. As one of the few super-large commercial aircraft models in the world, the S-10 is naturally the best super-large commercial aircraft of this era. It has an internal space of nearly 3,000 square meters, almost 5 times that of a Boeing 747-8. If the interior is decorated, the internal space is estimated to exceed 5,000 square meters, which is already equivalent to the size of a small shopping mall. But as a super-large commercial aircraft, this kind of space is only a matter of course. It can only be regarded as a standard configuration, and in terms of maximum range and fuel consumption, the S-10 has no advantage. Next is the price. The price of the bare plane is $810 million, and the research and development cost is more than $20 billion. But so far, not a single one has been sold. The S-10 hasn't failed yet. Facts speak louder than words, Professor Singit said with a smile. Professor Singit smiled and said, "As a civilian aircraft, the S-10 is not qualified, unless Northern Gravity can find enough rich people who are willing to spend $800 million to buy it and at least $300 million to decorate it." Doesn't the S-10 have any advantages? Chen Zhao asked. Yes, ultra-quiet technology. This is what Northern Gravity is most proud of. As we all know, the engine noise is unavoidable when taking a plane, and Northern Gravity's ultra-quiet technology is currently the most advanced. At the same time, the S-10 also has a decompression device that can stabilize the air pressure inside the fuselage within 100 meters. Chapter 2781. The fuel consumption is almost twice that of a Boeing 747-8. The same distance, but it's as slow as a snail. Chun Zhao was tempted. Mr. Bingerly, do you have detailed data on the S-10? Everyone was stunned and looked at Chen Zhao in surprise. Professor Singit was also stunned for a second. Then he suddenly realized something. Chen Zhao had said that he needed a palace in the sky. In the civil aviation market, it was almost useless. Chen Zhao didn't care about it. However, the advantages that didn't matter in the civil aviation market were the key to Chen Zhao's attraction. Expensive price, spacious and bright interior, silence, and a good flying environment were what Chen Zhao needed. So what if it was slow? This kind of plane must be used by a family for a trip. He wasn't in a hurry at all. What he wanted was a good traveling experience. Flying across the Pacific Ocean in one day was fine, even if it took him a day and a half. What he needed was to enjoy the journey to the extreme. The S-10 is indeed the most suitable for a palace in the sky, Singit said. Bingerly didn't expect such a turn of events. Yes, I have detailed data. Mr. Chin, can you wait for 30 minutes? I'll have someone send it over. Of course, no problem. Chen Zhao nodded. Professor Singit, can you tell me about other mid-tier models? Of course. It's my honor. Professor Singit then introduced a few well-known commercial aircraft manufacturers, from the manufacturer's history and culture to the price, advantages and disadvantages of the various models produced by them, as well as characteristics. Gulfstream, Legat, Airbus, Boeing, and Bombardier Worldwide were the ones Professor Singit introduced. Chun Zhao liked Gulfstream and Bombardier Worldwide the most. It wasn't just because of their performance, but also because of their popularity. However, he hadn't decided yet. The S-10 was also Chun Zhao's favorite model. If there weren't any other suitable models, Chun Zhao would consider getting this model. There were a few more guests who wanted to come over. However, they were all stopped by Felwood Scott. To put it bluntly, these guests were here to build relationships and expand their networks. However, these guests weren't of the same level. In Felwood Scott's words, these people weren't qualified. Half an hour later, Bingo Lang's people delivered the information Chun Zhao wanted. Chun Zhao looked at the documents. At the same time, Bingo Lang's subordinates gave more detailed and professional explanations. Mr. Bingale, I'm quite satisfied with the S-10. In the next few days, I'll look into the relevant information and give you an answer as soon as possible. Of course, I look forward to your reply. Bingerly Lang was satisfied with the current outcome. He didn't expect Chun Zhao to reply immediately. After all, this was a deal that involved nearly $1 billion USD. What they traded was not a toy, but a real plane. Chun Zhao's interest in S-10 had already exceeded his expectations. Mr. Chin, can we exchange contact information? Lijuoma also requested. Chun Zhao also agreed. Of course, he gave Portia's number. Under the night sky, Chun Zhao didn't walk on the roads in the city. Instead, he walked on the roads in the suburbs. Suddenly, a shooting star shot out from the grass by the roadside. The flaming tail hit Chun Zhao's car directly. Bang! It was a rocket fired from a rocket launcher. The car flipped to the ground, flames burning wildly. Just then, 2 people popped their heads out from the roadside. Then a few more people followed. Fuck, Tim, why did you shoot the car? I want you to shoot the road in front of him. Fuck, do you think you can shoot this thing wherever you want? One of them was tall and the other was short. The short fatty, called Tim, put down the rocket launcher on his shoulder. What do we do? Looks like the mission boss gave us failed. It's all your fault, idiot. Doreg, if you say one more word, I'll shove this up your ass, Tim said in annoyance. Whoosh! Suddenly, the wind became piercingly cold. The blazing sports car was reduced by the sudden gust of wind. The flames seemed to be compressed continuously. In the end, they disappeared. The thick black smoke seemed to be sucked in by a vacuum cleaner. No matter how much came out, it was absorbed by a single point. This strange scene attracted Tim and Doreg's attention, as well as their subordinates. They didn't understand what was going on with this obviously abnormal scene. Clang! The sports car, which had been completely burnt to ashes, suddenly flipped over. Something seemed to have flipped the car over from below. Everyone saw the person who should have been dead walk out of the car. Without hesitation, Tim raised the rocket launcher and aimed at the person. Whoosh! Boom! The rocket accurately hit the person. However, no one looked happy at all. The impact of the explosion only spread out briefly. The next moment, it shrank in a way that defied the laws of physics. The person was unharmed. The explosive flames kept shrinking in his hand until they were completely extinguished. Under the night sky, the person's eyes glowed red. Chun Zhao patted the dust off his body and looked at the group of people calmly. Run. The group of people dispersed in an instant. However, the first person who started running turned into ashes as he ran. Without my permission, whoever moves will die. Whoever opens their mouth will die. The people who'd wanted to escape during the chaos all froze. Everyone nodded involuntarily. Chun Zhao glanced at the people before him. There seemed to be too many people alive. I don't want to die. Save me. Half of the people suddenly turned into sparks. Tim just watched as door egg turned into sparks. The remaining half felt like their scalps were going to explode. A chill swept through their bodies. It was just such an absurd reason. Just because there were too many people alive. Half of them had been turned into ashes. The man before them was more terrifying than they'd imagined. Everyone was trembling, and not a single one of them was not regretting it. Why had they accepted this mission? Why had they encountered such a demon? Yes, in their eyes, Qin Zhao was a demon. Okay, it's your turn. Qin Zhao looked at the other half. Feeling Qin Zhao's gaze, everyone lowered their heads. No one wanted to be stared at by a demon. Who told you to kill me? Tell me. Qin Zhao pointed at Tim. Tim looked up and said without hesitation, Sir, we're not here to kill you. We're here to kidnap you. Chapter 2782. Since when did a rocket launcher become a standard for kidnappers? Qin Zhao was sure that a rocket launcher was not needed for a kidnapping. There really was no need. At least, not for a normal person. If the target was a monster, a rocket launcher was not enough at all. Are you kidding me? No, we're really here to kidnap. Are you so amateurs that you confuse kidnapping with murder? Facing Qin Zhao's mockery, they really wanted to say that they were professionals, but they did not have the courage to say it. Tim was helpless too. Of course, he knew what a normal kidnapping required, but the higher-ups only provided this thing. He had only planned to use the rocket launcher to scare Qin Zhao, but it was also his first time using it. This thing was too difficult to use. After firing it, there would be another 0. 5 seconds of ignition time. It was this 0, 5 second, that caused him to misjudge the situation. Who sent you? The boss of the English gang, Milo. So you're from the English gang? No, we're not. You work for the English gang, and now you're telling me you're not? We were forced to do this. We were originally just a small local gang. After the English gang came, they killed our boss and took us in. They also threatened us that if we didn't work for them, they would kill our whole family. Not only me, but almost all the other local gangs suffered the same fate. Just then, Qin Zhao's phone rang. Hello, Mr. Qin. Fellwood, what's up? Did something happen to you on the way? Huh. Qin Zhao was surprised. How did Fellwood know that something had happened to him? Did it have something to do with him? That couldn't be right. If it really had something to do with him, he should not be calling him now. What happened? Fellwood, why do you ask? Among the guests I invited just now, 2 of them had an accident on the road. One of them was just attacked, but he was lucky enough to escape. But the other one wasn't so lucky. He and his driver were shot by a group of gangsters with heavy machine guns. Now the police have informed me. After all, those who had an accident were my guests. It's good that you're fine. I'm fine. Thank you for your concern. Let me know if you have any news. I'll be home soon. That's all for now. After hanging up, Qin Zhao looked at Tim and the others. You're not the only attackers. As far as I know, several groups of people are targeting the tycoons of Los Angeles. Tim was filled with regret. Why did he pick such a target? Any other target would be better than this demon in front of him. It seemed that the English gang was really lawless. It is not surprising that they would target the wealthy. The kidnappers were naturally rich people. But he wasn't making a move. He was delivering a challenge to the rich. If it was just a rich man who was attacked and killed, the others would only watch the show. But now, several or even more than a dozen rich people were attacked at the same time. That would be a huge problem. America was a country ruled by the rich. Therefore, it was time to delve deeper into the matter. The English gang was issuing a challenge to the U.S. government. Basically, they did everything that the gangs couldn't do. If more than 10 tycoons were attacked or killed in one night, it would cause social unrest. And those tycoons, as well as the connections they could influence, would instantly release a terrifying amount of energy. Take Qin Zhao, for example. As a member of the rich, Chen Zhao would not let it go so easily. Of course, if Chen Zhao was just an ordinary person, he would at most buy media coverage for a few days. Otherwise, he would find someone with influence, like Stephen or Rasva, who often appeared in public. Or he could pressure the local police to arrest the suspects as soon as possible. If he was more impulsive, he could just hire mercenaries and destroy the gang's headquarters. Ordinary tycoons could only do this much. Chen Zhao clearly did not plan to follow this plan. While Chen Zhao was thinking, Tim's eyes flashed. "Sir, I heard that a few core members of the English gang are unusual too." "Oh, you know?" Chen Zhao could not help but look up at Tim. "How much do you know?" "I didn't see it with my own eyes, but there's a rumor that a core member of the English gang once used a car as a baseball bat to hit people in public." In the past, Tim had also treated this rumor as a joke. But after what happened tonight, Tim believed the rumor. There really were things in this world that he did not know and did not understand. "I have a way to find out the core secrets of the English gang," Tim said mysteriously. "How can I believe you?" "Sir, do you know any magic curses that will kill me horribly if I break my promise?" Tim was also gambling. He was betting that Chen Zhao would let him live for the English gang's information. Chen Zhao glanced at Tim and suddenly snapped his fingers. Instantly, all of Tim's subordinates screamed in pain. Their skin was being torn. Their blood was seeping out from under their torn skin. Then it gathered before Tim. Tim looked at the floating ball of blood before him in shock. He could feel that something was about to happen. As expected, his uneasy premonition came true. The ball of blood suddenly slammed into his chest. Tim was sent flying. When he climbed up with difficulty, he felt extreme pain in his chest. He tore open his shirt and found a bulging piece of flesh on his chest. The piece of flesh was still beating in time with his heart. This is the curse you want." Chen Zhao grabbed at the air. Tim immediately felt as if his heart was being held in someone's hand, making it hard for him to breathe. "This is a flesh curse. If you dare to betray me, I only need to grab lightly and you'll die no matter where you hide." Tim was terrified, but Chen Zhao sneered inwardly. There was no curse. The piece of flesh on Tim's body was actually his. It wasn't a flesh curse at all. As for the suffocation he felt, it was even simpler. Chen Zhao was just using the small world to slightly suppress the air around him. Tim thought that he had grabbed his heart. As long as Tim left his small world and attack range, there was nothing Chen Zhao could do. Of course, if Tim really betrayed him, Chen Zhao had ways to deal with him. Tim was a normal person. Chen Zhao had ways to deal with him. Chapter 2783. Chen Zhao had suspected that the core members of the England gang were cultists. Or rather, they were cultists to begin with. Chen Zhao really couldn't think of a second possibility. The next day, Chen Zhao heard about what had happened last night. 2 rich people who'd attended the dinner with Chen Zhao had been attacked. One of them had died on the spot. Nearly 20 rich people in LA had been attacked on the road, in their companies, or at home. 2 had died or had been injured, and 2 had gone missing. All of the kidnappers had used heavy weapons. Once this was reported, it caused an uproar. The authorities were even on high alert. If the people had been attacked were ordinary people, even 200 wouldn't attract the attention of the authorities, let alone 20. But the influence of 20 rich people wasn't something 200 ordinary people could compare to. They and their connections, as well as many unrelated tycoons, all mobilized their power. In one day, all of LA, and even all of America, was in a huge uproar. Even the Department of National Defense announced that they were willing to clean up some cities by force. Of course, the security department wasn't willing. At the same time, they said that they could handle it themselves. What Chen Zhao didn't expect the most was that the supernatural organization would be the one to deal with it. The news reached Chen Zhao on the second day of the incident. "President, the security department gave us an order through Mansari. They want us to deal with the LA gang." I didn't expect the security department to ask us to deal with the gang. I also didn't expect the order to come through Mansari. I thought that even if the mission was given by the security department, Mansari would take it. Their psionic team should be able to do it too, right? President Toddy Belster sent news that they fought yesterday. I heard that the new psionic team didn't win. Huh. West's words caught Chen Zhao's attention. The psionic team didn't win? They didn't lose either. It was a draw. We wanted to do a surgery and eliminate their core members, but we didn't catch a single one. A few new members were also injured. Toddy Belster didn't do anything? Chen Zhao asked, surprised. He knew that Toddy had become the trump card of the psionic team. Chen Zhao didn't expect that he would let Toddy Belster infiltrate the psionic team, but it made Toddy Belster an important figure in the psionic team. Of course, Chen Zhao didn't let Toddy Belster touch the psionic team. It was best for Chen Zhao and the supernatural organization to maintain his current identity. Actually, there was a need for a psionic team to exist as well. After all, the psionic team was a tool to keep the supernatural organization in check. At the very least, he had to make the security department think that the psionic team could keep the supernatural organization in check. The supernatural organization had to maintain their dominance. This would ensure the interests of the supernatural organization. Now, the supernatural organization was doing well. Although Mansari was against it, he still needed to give it a large amount of money every year. It was because he knew that the psionic ability team was not important. There were many things that needed the supernatural organization's help. For example, this incident. They couldn't even handle a gang. That was a little too shameful. Regardless of the reason, this was an indisputable fact. Toddy Belster didn't do anything, West said. His role in the psionic team is similar to your role in the supernatural organization, West said. We can't let him do everything. If he has to do something like clearing out gangs, it'll be too embarrassing for them. Chen Zhao thought about it. It made sense. If they used all their trump cards, it would be too embarrassing for them. As a force in the spiritual world, it would be too embarrassing. But the psionic team was still embarrassing. They had mobilized a lot of people to do it, but they hadn't gotten the results yet. Now, they had to fight against them. Was there anything more embarrassing than this? Anyway, Chen Zhao felt that they should be embarrassed. That was the truth. Vestana, Mansari, and Toddy Belster were sitting in the conference room of the psionic team's new headquarters. Britz lowered his head and didn't say a word. There were two groups of people sitting below, and they were the newly recruited members. Britz was the person in charge of last night's operation. He'd thought that it would be a one-sided victory. This should have been a victory without any suspense. But the result made everyone's jaw drop. They didn't win. They didn't even leave a single person alive. The core members of the England gang escaped calmly. Was there anything more hopeless than this? Brits had recruited these new members into the psionic team. Most of them weren't outstanding, and there were even some who were relatively young. But they had no problem dealing with normal people. Plus, they had quite a lot of people. Plus, they had excellent equipment and expensive magic tools. Even against people from the spiritual world, they had a chance of winning. But when they surrounded the England gang last night, their performance could only be described as unsightly. In a one-on-one situation, they actually didn't win a single one. Of course, the core members of the England gang weren't normal people either. But this definitely wasn't the reason for their failure. In the operation last night, the only one who had a result was Britz. He'd led the team last night. He'd injured 3 core members of the England gang, and even captured 2. Unfortunately, 5 of them had been captured. Then the 2 sides could only exchange prisoners. At the end of the day, he'd also failed in leading the team last night. Because his role wasn't to fight personally. He was to command and control the situation. But the operation last night was completely out of his control. Not to mention controlling the situation. In that chaotic situation, not a single one of them had died. That was already a huge gain. I don't want to explain my mistake, Britz finally said. I'll take full responsibility for the failure last night. I'm willing to accept punishment. Actually, everyone knew that the psionic team was supported by Toddy Belster now. Blitz's strength wasn't bad, but it could only be considered good in the end. He didn't match the word expert, and was far from the top. Mansari and Vestana were disappointed too. They had the history of the supernatural organization. In the past, the supernatural organization was even worse than the psionic team. But ever since Chen Zhao took over, the organization soared. Their strength increased by leaps and bounds. They thought that they could replicate Chen Zhao's miracle, but reality proved that they'd been overthinking. Chapter 2784. Back then, the supernatural organization had wanted anyone. For example, an elite who sold insurance or Morid who wasn't mainstream. Almost all of them were useless. There was also a Duz who was just an ordinary person. Another example was Jalanash. She was the weakest in her family and had been kicked out. She would be treated as a genius and expert in the supernatural organization. In comparison, their psionic team had a much better start. But why was the result so different? The members had been carefully selected too. At least to them, these members might not be strong now, but they all had some potential. So they were confident in the future of the psionic team. But confidence couldn't be eaten with food. At least they couldn't eat now. They had experts like Qin Zhao too. Toddy Belster was undeniably strong. She was their trump card. They felt that if they were facing some extremely difficult missions, Toddy Belster could do them all. But that wasn't the problem now. Instead, it was because they had failed the simplest of tasks. No need to say useless things. Tell me the details. Toddy Belster waved her hand, interrupting Britz's self-blame. To avoid the next failure, we have to summarize the reason for this failure. Not strong enough? Not prepared enough? Or is there some other reason? The core members of the English gang are all awakened, Britz said. They're not very strong, but they're very difficult to deal with. Awakened? Impossible. I've investigated the core members. None of them are awakened. They should all be normal people. Of course, Vestana couldn't accept this result, because she'd been the one who'd investigated and provided the information. If Britz said that they were all awakened, it meant that she had failed in her job. Ms. Vestana, I'm not trying to shift the blame, Britz said. I'm just stating the facts. Vestana crossed her arms in front of her chest, dissatisfaction written all over her face. Speed, teleportation, flame, petrification, spirit, sharp blade. In short, those people all have dangerous abilities. However, most of them aren't very strong, and they seem to be very rusty. However, their boss is very powerful. Even I don't have the confidence to escape unscathed. Britz looked at Toddy Belster. In the psionic team, I'm afraid only Master Toddy can defeat their boss. The higher-ups couldn't help but frown. Blitz actually compared the mafia boss to Toddy Belster? Is that guy really that dangerous? Vestana couldn't help but ask. Yes, but it seems like he has some misgivings and didn't go all out. Moreover, he isn't as crazy as I thought. He seems more rational. According to the information they received, the England gang and their boss, Milo Tanzik Williams, were a bunch of complete lunatics. But to Britz's surprise, the first time he met Milo Tanzik Williams, he did not sense his madness. On the contrary, he felt calm and restrained. That was definitely not the quality of a lunatic. I heard that all core members have a special characteristic. Vestana glanced at the crowd. Killing his own parents, wife, and children. Do you think this kind of person is not crazy? Everyone below felt a chill run down their spines. The England gang has a total of 23 core members and 23 lunatics. I suspect that Milo Tanzik Williams believes in some unknown evil god, Britt said. The so-called core member requirement is more like some kind of sacrifice. If you want that power, you have to kill your own family. Vestana narrowed her eyes. How does that Milo Tanzig Williams compare to the president of the supernatural organization? Toddy Belster was speechless. Why did he have to compare with that guy? He was a real monster. Brits had seen Qin Zhao fight twice. The level difference is too big, Brit said. There's no comparison. Of course. Brits knew what Vestana was thinking. She wanted the supernatural organization and the England gang to fight to the death. Then the psionic team would reap the benefits. However, that was obviously impossible. Actually, he had compared Chen Zhao, Toddy Belster, and Milo Tanzig Williams' abilities. Without a doubt, Chen Zhao was the strongest. He had only seen Chen Zhao fight a few times. Moreover, Chen Zhao had never used his full strength before him. However, even if it wasn't his full strength, it was still shocking. Next was Toddy Belster. Toddy Belster was also an unfathomable powerhouse. To Brits, even if Toddy wasn't as strong as Chen Zhao, she wouldn't be much weaker. Toddy Belster was their ace. She was also their confidence against the supernatural organization. As for Milo Tanzig Williams, he was very strong. However, this kind of strength could be predicted. It was different from the first two. The first two were unfathomable and unimaginable. Tim, don't show yourself for a few days. It's very chaotic outside. Tim received a call from his brother. Bodhi, how's the situation? When I went to the headquarters this morning, I found that it was full of police officers, and the headquarters was completely surrounded. Boss and I are in a hidden place. Don't ask too much. It's not good for you. Brother, you're not in danger, right? It's not the police this time, but it's more troublesome, Bodhi said. Hearing his brother's words, Tim felt even more uneasy. Bodhi, can you tell me what's going on between Boss Milo and you? Tim asked in a low voice. Knowing too much will only put you in greater danger. You're my only family. I don't want to hurt you. Bodhi, I'm in big trouble now, Tim said. What trouble? Remember that 2 nights ago, I accepted a mission to ambush a tycoon. Yes, the mission failed. I heard that you blew him up with a rocket launcher. Actually, he didn't turn to dust. He walked out of the flames, and with one glance, all my men turned to dust, Tim said. Tim said, I survived because he wanted me to be a spy, and he put a curse on me. If I can't bring him any useful information, he can kill me with a single thought. Who is he? I'll go kill him. Chapter 2785. Bodhi, you can't beat him. You can't understand his strange power at all. Do you think he's the only person in the world with strange power? Bodhi, just like you thought, I have it too. But how do you have it? Tim asked, confused. Don't ask. Tim knew that Bodhi's next sentence would be, knowing too much is not good for you. Nevertheless, Tim still had basic judgment. There should be strong and weak people like you, right? Of course, but if you know who's behind me and bestowed me power, you won't doubt if I can beat the enemy. Then who's behind you? Don't ask. Nevertheless, Bodhi's words still piqued Tim's interest. If Bodhi could really kill that man, then he wouldn't have to be afraid anymore. Bodhi, that guy is really scary. Are you sure you want to fight him? Don't worry. I can't fail. My power comes from God. Despite Bodhi's words, Tim was still worried. That man had left too deep an impression on him that night. Aren't you in trouble with Boss Milo? It's a bit troublesome, but it's not unsolvable. Plus, I'm not completely controlled by him. Completely controlled? Bodhi, what do you mean? Don't ask. I don't know where the core members of the England gang are hiding. They've been hiding ever since the battle with the psionic team. What about them? Chen Zhao asked, annoyed. They didn't give us any information at all. The security department and the psionic team were picking up trash for them. They could try first. If they couldn't beat them, they could leave the mess to the supernatural organization. Of course, this could also be understood as relying on them. But Chen Zhao was still annoyed. West shook his head. They're looking too, but it's like they've disappeared from the world. Our intelligence sources are limited. Intelligence had always been the supernatural organization's weakness. It was also an insurmountable barrier for the organization to reach the top. Building an intelligence network couldn't be done with just a few dollars. It wasn't something the supernatural organization, which had less than $100 million a year, could build either. He couldn't use his own money to subsidize the supernatural organization. Moreover, they did not have any professional intelligence personnel. Therefore, the vast majority of information still had to be obtained through external sources. For example, the underground intelligence network of normal people or the people on the streets were the sources of information for the supernatural organization. And now, this inadequacy was also revealed in this sexual encounter. Although the English gang has gone into hiding, they have not stopped targeting the rich. Yesterday, 2 more rich people were attacked, and this time it was not the ordinary gang members, but their core members. Both of them were injured, but they were not taken away. However, several bodyguards were killed, and now some rich people seem to know about the existence of the spiritual world. They are asking if they can hire people from the spiritual world as bodyguards. Huh. Chen Zhao raised an eyebrow. What do you think? This is beneficial to the North American supernatural world, but it's meaningless to us. We have too few people, and we're generally stronger than ordinary spiritualists. If our asking price is low, it's meaningless to us. If we ask for a high price, not many people can afford it. What's the level of the price that the rich people are offering? Right now, the prices are all private. The spiritualists they find are also different, so it's hard to have a standard. But the average annual salary is less than $300,000. Chun Zhao thought about it. This price was indeed very attractive to spiritualists who did not have a high income. But to the supernatural organization, it was not attractive at all. The Adus who guarded the gate here all had an annual income of $500,000. After all, in everyone's eyes, Adus was a high-risk job. The other members' annual income was between $800,000 and $1 million. If they could not pay at least twice that, they would not be attractive to the supernatural organization. But spending $2 or $3 million a year was also unbearable for most rich people. Chen Zhao's annual income was in the billions, but he was a special case. Rich people with an annual income of more than $50 million were already in the minority. Some people might have billions, but they might not even have more than $10 million in spare cash. It was clearly impossible for them to spend a few million to find someone to protect them. Of course, the top rich could still afford a few million for security, but the top rich might have already contacted them, so they would not have a chance. However, there is a rich man who contacted us and wants us to be his security consultant. Oh, who is it? You know him. Norma's uncle, Louis Clallam. Oh, him. Louis Clallam was and awakened himself, so he could be considered a member of the supernatural world. In fact, Louis Clallam and Chen Zhao had many similarities. Moreover, Norma was a pure awakened and one of the pillars of the supernatural organization. So it wasn't strange that Louis Clallam had contacted the supernatural organization. When Norma joined the supernatural organization, Louis Clallam had donated tens of millions of dollars to them. How does Clallam plan to cooperate with us? We'll provide him with some advice on security and help with magic. He'll give us $20 million a year. Sure, that's reasonable. Chen Zhao nodded. Actually, this kind of cooperation would officially establish their relationship and deepen their relationship. After all, even if Chen Zhao did not agree to this kind of cooperation, would Norma just stand by if Louis was in trouble? Of course, if Louis really was in trouble, the supernatural organization would also provide more protective services, such as Chen Zhao's personal help. Let's hurry and find those crazy people from the English gang. They're very cautious now. It'll be hard. West was helpless too. Without a source of information, it was useless no matter how anxious they were. Chun Zhao was considering if he should find some clues from other sources. After all, he had his own connections. Just then, Chun Zhao's phone rang. It was Lila Gavich. Elf Messenger, What can I do for you? Although Lila Gavich was an elf, he was an elf messenger. Every time he saw Lila Gavich, Qin Zhao could not help but curse in his heart. He had destroyed Chen Zhao's good impression of elves. Chapter 2786. Beautiful, fair-skinned, long-legged, natural, gentle, and kind. These were almost all of Qin Zhao's hopes for elves, but they were also the opposite of Lila Gavich. A 250-pound fatty clearly had nothing to do with fair-skinned and long-legged. As a chemical giant, he naturally had nothing to do with being fair-skinned and long-legged. Gentle and kind? Ha! Qin, do you have time to come to my house? Sure. Now. Of course. Okay, I'll go now. Oh, I moved. Come to New Moon Beach. New Moon Beach? How come I've never heard of it? I bought it recently. In fact, Lila Gavich had bought the beach because he'd been to Qin Zhao's moon villa a few times. Then he cleaned and improved the beach, even renaming it. Okay, I'll be there soon. Some people had once said that if Los Angeles opened up its entire coastline for sale, its finances alone could buy the entire United States. Los Angeles had the best, and longest coastline in North America. Moreover, there were many high-quality beaches. However, many of the beaches were parks or weren't allowed to be developed because they were coral reefs. Therefore, most of the beaches were still in their original state. Of course, this was also the value of the developed coastlines. Because of the scarcity and the protection of the surrounding environment, the developed coastlines were able to retain their value. Therefore, every beach that was sold or developed was a rare resource. It was an astronomical price. Apart from a few beaches, the rest were all worth hundreds of millions of dollars. As for the Bright Moon Villa, in the end, the price of the Bright Moon Beach didn't go up because the sharks had taken over the area. Moreover, Qin Zhao and Amira had been close, so Amira was giving it away for free. Otherwise, a few $1 million wouldn't be able to buy Moon Beach. Lila Gavich's New Moon Beach wasn't worse than Moon Beach. In fact, many things were even better. Of course, Moon Beach had been improved by Qin Zhao's spiritual qi. One wouldn't be able to find a better coastline in America or even the world, let alone New Moon Beach. Moon Beach was a blessed land that could rival top sections. When Qin Zhao arrived at the villa before New Moon Beach, he realized that apart from Lila Gavich, there were only 2 maids. Gavich, you only have 2 maids in such a big mansion. Is that convenient? How about you sell me a few underlings? Forget it. Selling inferior demons makes me feel like I'm selling human beings. Actually, after interacting with underlings for a long time, Qin Zhao would develop feelings for them. Underlings were born servants, but they still had their own thoughts. Moreover, they are naturally lively, optimistic, and loyal. They were of great help to Qin Zhao and Fei Lai in their daily lives. Qin Zhao had a lot of underlings, but he didn't need them. However, Qin Zhao didn't want to sell them. Of course, Qin Zhao wouldn't let the underlings breed endlessly. Therefore, Qin Zhao would give them a maximum number of reproduction. Once they reached this number, they would stop reproducing. This was not difficult. Their total number divided by the upper limit of their lifespan was the number they could reproduce each year. If humans were born rebellious, then they were born to be subservient. Lila Gage knew the origins of the lesser demons, a race of demons from hell. Lila Gavich did not find this strange. After all, Qin Zhao could travel between the human world and the human world freely. Therefore, it was not strange to bring a few demons from hell back to the human world. After what had happened last time, Lila Gage only respected Qin Zhao. Although Qin Zhao rejected his request, he did not take to heart. Lila Gage called the maids over to prepare some wine and food for them. Qin Zhao glanced at the 2 maids with twisted faces. They did not belong to a normal person's sense of beauty. In fact, their appearance had surpassed most creatures' sense of beauty. Simply put, they were ugly and extraordinarily ugly. Qin Zhao did not understand why Lila Gage would find 2 strange-looking women to be his maids. This had nothing to do with discrimination. It was purely because no normal person would make such a choice. It was not like he did not have the financial means. He could easily find 2 or even more beautiful women to be his maids. At least, Qin Zhao would not find someone like them. They're half-elves. Qin Zhao's expression seemed to be saying, "Are you kidding me? I'm not joking. They're half-elves and have dark elf blood. Because their blood can't perfectly merge with humans, they look like this." Lila Gavich looked at him seriously. Because of their looks, they were abandoned in the orphanage, so they have low self-esteem. They're also bullied by their own kind. I invited you here for them too. Lila Gavich looked at Qin Zhao seriously. "I'm not a plastic surgeon," Chen Zhao said helplessly. "I think even a plastic surgeon can't save them." "Of course I know, but it's not like there's no way. Are you talking about magic?" "Yes, but it's not human magic." "How magic?" Qin Zhao asked. "The Thousand Faces spell. As long as you master the spell, you can change your appearance at will," Lila Gage said. "Apparently, even demons have not heard of the spell. At least, most demons don't know about it, but I still have some hope." Lila Gage looked at Qin Zhao seriously. "I can ask my friends in hell for you, but I can't guarantee that they have it. Also, if they need to pay any price, you'll have to pay for it." "Of course, I understand, but I hope it won't be too high. Don't worry. If it's too high, I'll reject them for you." When the 2 maids came out, they were very excited. They must have inherited Elve's extraordinary hearing and already heard Qin Zhao and Lila Gage's conversation. To them, appearance was probably their lifelong pursuit. Just then, one of the maids said, "Mr. Lila, Mr. Qin, there are 2 people outside." Qin Zhao sensed and could already tell that one of them was Tim. As for the other person, he had powerful magic waves around him. His aura rippled as if he was ready to fight at any time. He clearly didn't come with good intentions. "I'll go take care of them," Qin Zhao said, standing up. "No, leave it to Enyaxalai and Balori," Lila Gage said. "Huh, them." Qin Zhao looked at the 2 maids. "Sir, should we just kill them?" Enyaxalai asked. Qin Zhao thought for a moment. "If possible, just subdue them for now." Chapter 2787. Bodhi, that Asian, should have entered the manor just now, right? "Even if this manor doesn't belong to that Asian, he must be rich," Bodhi said, his eyes shining. Tim was still worried. After all, he'd seen Qin Zhao fight. What left the deepest impression on him wasn't Qin Zhao's strange and unpredictable magic. Instead, it was Qin Zhao's coldness that could easily turn people into dust. This was what left the deepest impression on him. "Such a big manor, but there are only 4 people," Bodhi said, touching his chin. "How do you know there are only 4 people inside?" Tim asked, confused. Bodhi chuckled. "As long as there are people breathing and air spreading, they can't escape my senses." Bodhi glanced at Tim. Tim suddenly felt suffocated. The air around him seemed to have thinned. That Asian you mentioned has the power to control fire, and I'm his nemesis. Before me, he can't even raise a single flame." Bodhi's basic ability was to control air. It was a very basic ability. However, the more basic an ability was, the more possibilities it had. Bodhi had just obtained this ability not long ago, but he'd already mastered some techniques. The deeper he explored, the more he felt that this ability was powerful and unfathomable. Moreover, this kind of ability could be continuously strengthened through exploration. At first, Bodhi could only sense the air flow within a few meters around him, but now, half a year later, he could already sense within 100 meters. This ability also made him the radar of the English gang. In the attack 2 days ago, he'd relied on his foresight to gain the upper hand and leave easily. At this moment, 2 women came out, 2 extremely ugly women. Enyaxalai and Bellary came to the door. They blocked Bodhi and Tim's footsteps. "Let's go in," Bodhi said, unconcerned. But Bodhi didn't care. "I'm not interested in ugly women." Enyaxalai and Bellary were ugly, unbelievably ugly. But this was also their taboo. The more they lacked something, the more they cared about it. Bodhi had said such things to them right in front of them. Clearly, he'd crossed their bottom line. "You're courting death." In an instant, Enyusili's eyes turned golden. She spread her arms wide as if she was drawing an invisible bow. Gradually, the dark golden bow's horn and the golden bowstring appeared in the form of energy particles. The last one was a pure white arrow. Bodhi snorted, raised his palm and pressed it down again. In an instant, Enyusili felt like she was suffocating. However, her magic did not stop. Bodhi was a little surprised, but not too surprised. He had fought against the psionic team before. A simple suffocation would not cause too much trouble to the spiritualists. The ugly woman in front of him was obviously more troublesome than most of the enemies that night. Since he was unable to pose a threat to his enemies, it was naturally difficult for him to pose a threat to this woman. So Bodhi soon decided to change his move. Against the wind. Controlling the air meant controlling the air pressure. The so-called air pressure was the difference in air density. Mastering air pressure meant mastering the flow of air, which was wind. Bodhi could now create a small storm in a small area. But at that moment, Baloli made her move. She also raised her right palm, and an invisible barrier appeared in front of them. For ordinary people, Bodhi's attack could not be seen or touched. But for the elves, none of this was a secret. Their communication with nature allowed them to know everything around them like the back of their hands. The wind stopped in front of them. This kind of natural attack was neutralized by the barrier of nature. Bodhi frowned slightly. The two ugly women in front of him seemed quite troublesome, but it was not to the extent that Bodhi was helpless. Air was everywhere, and his power was everywhere. Suddenly, Bodhi compressed the air, forming a high-pressure air mass, and smashed it heavily at Enyusili and Baloli. What a crude way to use it. Baloli was even more disapproving. Elves were a race that had mastered magic earlier than humans. Their application of magic was also more delicate than humans. The same spell could be used to great effect in their hands. If Enyaxilai and Bellari's appearance was the sum of elves and humans, then their magic talent was the sum of elves and humans. Unfortunately, they also had the best teacher among the elves, who was also their adoptive father, Lila Gavich. In the past, Lila Gavich had been the strongest among the elves, but now he was the strongest, the elven emissary that hadn't appeared in centuries. "Sound of silence," Baloli said indifferently. She didn't seem to move at all. The immense pressure that was pressing down on them instantly turned into a soundless breeze. Bodhi had thought that he was the nemesis of fire magic, because air was the foundation of flame combustion. Without air, fire could not be generated. But the elves were his nemesis. Because of the elves' nature magic, the essence of his seemingly invisible magic was not mysterious. The greatest characteristic of nature magic was that it came from heaven and earth, from all things, and from nature, and it was more natural and comprehensive. It wasn't control, but resonance. Resonance. This was an extremely profound magic theory in the spiritual world. Most spiritualists could master a dozen spells, but no matter how skilled they were, they couldn't achieve resonance. For human spiritualists to understand resonance, they needed the right time, place, and people. Those with mediocre talent might not be able to understand resonance their entire lives. But most elves were born with the talent of resonance. And Enyusili and Baloli were even more talented than that. It wasn't that they weren't strong enough, and it wasn't that they couldn't release more powerful and destructive spells. They just released the spells that suited them best. In front of them, Bodhi didn't have any secrets. His abilities, his moves, it was as if he was running naked in front of the two of them. His skills were average, his abilities were average, and his control was average. In short, he was very stable and comprehensive. Just then, Enyusili's arrow of nature was completed. Enyusili loosened the golden bowstring. Sniff, a simple and unadorned arrow. Bodhi's air wall was shattered. Body was sent flying and smashed into the trunk of a big tree behind him. He didn't die, but he was seriously injured. "Anyasili, your magic is not detailed enough," Baloli said calmly. As the elder sister, she had the right to say that. Chapter 2788. Anyasili didn't retort. After all, Balori's magic talent and power were indeed above hers. Apart from her adoptive father and teacher, Lila Gage, Anyasili could only listen to Balori. Anyasili could only listen to Balori's words. Bodhi spat out blood in pain. His mind was still blank. Tim didn't dare to move at all. He already regretted listening to Bodhi's arrogant words. He'd naively thought that he could break free from Chun Zhao's control. In the end, he was defeated by these two ugly women before he could even see Bodhi. Anyasili walked up and picked Bodhi up. Balori came to Tim's side and was about to attack. "I'll go myself," Tim said hurriedly. The two were brought before Chun Zhao and Lila Gage. Chun Zhao glanced at Bodhi and then at Tim. Right now, Tim was trembling all over. How could he believe Bodhi's words? Bodhi was captured, but the ferocity in his eyes didn't decrease. He stared at Chun Zhao closely. "I want to duel you." Bodhi growled at Chun Zhao. Lila Gage couldn't help but look at Chun Zhao and then at Bodhi. He couldn't even beat his adopted daughter. "Duel Chun Zhao? Do you want to eat shit? Duel!" Chun Zhao asked carelessly, "What do I get?" "I have everything you want to know. If I lose, what do I lose?" "Your power." "Okay, come." Chun Zhao hooked his finger, but Chun Zhao still sat on the chair. Bodhi lowered his head slightly. His expression was cold. Suffocation. Chun Zhao realized that the air around him had been sucked dry. In fact, when Bodhi was fighting Anyasili and Balori, he'd already realized that Bodhi had the power to control air. However, Chun Zhao also realized that his ability didn't come from his bloodline or magic. It was more like an instinct, like eating and sleeping. This ability wasn't rare, but the way to use it was rare. It could even be said to be unique. Bodhi looked at Chun Zhao in shock. What was going on? Why didn't it work? "You can control air. Will you die from lack of oxygen?" "What?" "You have 10 seconds to prepare enough air. After all, you're about to go to a low-oxygen area." Bodhi was still confused. He didn't understand what Chun Zhao meant, but soon he understood, because his body suddenly rose into the air. 100 meters, 1,000 meters, 10,000 meters, 20,000 meters, 30,000 meters. Now he finally understood Chun Zhao's words. The air was getting thinner, and his strength was getting weaker and weaker. "Ah!" Tim could only hear his brother's screams rising into the air. Everyone remained silent. About a few minutes later, everyone raised their heads again. That was because everyone heard another blood-curdling scream. It came from high up in the sky. At the same time, Bodhi's figure was gradually growing from a small black. However, he did not land in the courtyard, but in the sea. The moment it fell into the sea, it set off huge waves. Then he was pushed out by the seawater and thrown into the courtyard. He lay on the ground, dripping wet. Bodhi's whole body was curled up, and he kept shaking. High up in the sky, the suffocation, the cold, and the high temperature almost reached the extreme pain that a human could endure. Tim also turned pale with fright. Earlier, when Bodhi challenged Chun Zhao confidently, Chun Zhao was stunned. He had hoped that Bodhi had some trump card that could turn the tables. In the end, he was disappointed. Completely disappointed. There was no need to explain the difference between them. They weren't even creatures of the same dimension. The difference between the two couldn't be calculated with logic. Even Lila Gavik could not help but exclaim. Chun Zhao's strength was completely unreasonable. Nevertheless, Lila Gavik still admired Bodhi. At least he dared to challenge Chun Zhao. Of course, it was not because of his fearlessness. It was because of his ignorance. He had beaten the elemental lord, demigod Amandadar, to death. A terrifying existence that fought against 1,000,000 demons alone. Just how big of a heart did he have to be to challenge him to a duel? Of course, the result was within Lila Gavik's expectations. However, the process was somewhat unexpected. The poor guy had almost been thrown out of the atmosphere. Bodhi lay on the ground, dying. If you want to keep lying on the ground and pretend to be dead, I can fulfill your wish. As expected, Bodhi propped himself up with difficulty. There was deep fear in his eyes when he looked at Chen Zhao. As the person involved, he knew very well what had just happened. He might be the first person in human history to fly so high without any equipment. Of course, the man before him might have also reached that height. Looks like you already know the difference between us. Do you want to continue the duel? Or admit defeat? I admit defeat. Then tell me everything you know. For example, how did you obtain this power and the purpose of your duel? Chen Zhao knew very well that when he agreed to the duel, a special power was exerted on him. It was like a contract, but different. This power restrained him. Chen Zhao was surprised and curious about this power. This wasn't a power system that he was familiar with. That was why Bodhi could survive. It wasn't because he was powerful, but because he was valuable. Bodhi was very unwilling. But there was no use in being unwilling. What do you want to know? I said everything. Let's start with the duel, just now. Where did the contract come from? Bodhi was shocked. Chen Zhao was the first person to feel the uniqueness of the duel. Don't be too surprised. The man before you is the strongest human in the world. The Olympian gods, Bodhi answered. This duel was recognized and watched by the gods. The Olympian gods died long ago, Chen Zhao said, unconcerned. Don't talk to me about those mysterious things. Chen Zhao knew more about the Olympian gods than anyone else. That divine mountain had been a corner of Mount Olympus. It was clear that the entire mountain had probably been destroyed. Even if the Olympian gods hadn't died, they were probably hiding in some corner, struggling to survive. When Bodhi talked about the Olympian gods, Chen Zhao was more willing to believe that it was some evil god's blessing. Whether you believe it or not, I'm just telling you what I know. Bodhi also knew that it wasn't easy to be believed and accepted when the topic was about gods. But as the loser of the duel, he could only answer truthfully. Then don't tell me the source of your power is also from one of the Olympian gods. More accurately, it's Ares, the god of war. Chapter 2789. Milo Tanzik Williams calls himself the god of war, Ares's Earthwalker. The prerequisite for us to obtain this power is to cut off all ties. Your entire family? Chen Zhao sneered. He didn't believe that a good god could make such a rule. Most evil gods probably wouldn't make such a rule. Tim stared at Bodhi in shock. He was Bodhi's real brother. They'd been in an orphanage when they were young and then separated. But they'd kept in touch all these years. He knew how much Bodhi loved his wife. He'd been happy for Bodhi back then, but he didn't believe it. Bodhi would actually kill his own wife for some illusory power. Feeling Tim's gaze, Bodhi said indifferently, "Only brothers won't betray each other." His words obviously contained a lot of meaning. Even without this rule, I won't let that bitch go. So before you do it, do you need a ceremony? Ceremony? No. But Mr. Milo gave me a red dagger. Bodhi's method was extreme. However, Chen Zhao thought about something else. If Bodhi was telling the truth, the rules set by Ares, the god of war, only required him to kill his loved ones. Wife, children, parents, so the rule didn't restrict blood relations. After all, the wife definitely wasn't related to him by blood. Secondly, it didn't matter if they had feelings. It seemed like it didn't matter if they were close relatives or not. So instead of saying it was a rule, it was more like a sacrifice. Where's the dagger? Is it still with you? It has been taken away by Mr. Moreau. After killing your wife, you obtained the power to control air? I returned the red dagger to Mr. Milo and had him drip a drop of my blood on the dagger. Then I obtained this power. Chen Zhao thought for a while. He was sure that this was a magic ceremony, but it didn't seem very complicated. As for whether it was Ares or not, that still needed to be proven. After all, Humans borrowed the name of gods, or gods borrowed the name of other gods. This was all normal. Any outcome was possible. However, to be able to bestow such extraordinary power to others, it was definitely not an ordinary force. Even a Taoist sacred ground like Mount Longhu might not be able to directly allow an ordinary person to obtain extraordinary power. Of course, this wasn't without a price. After all, under normal circumstances, no one would accept the condition of killing their own kin. Perhaps only someone like Bodhi, who would kill his wife for betraying him, or someone like Halles, who had a deep grudge against her mother and siblings. Of course, there were definitely people who were selfish to the extreme. However, such people were definitely in the minority. Where are the people of your England gang hiding? My men searched all over Los Angeles, but they couldn't find your people. Bodhi took a deep breath and said, "Obviously, you didn't really turn Los Angeles upside down. Please don't joke with me. I'm not joking." Bodhi said helplessly, "Our people are hiding underground. I don't know how Mr. Moreau did it that day, but he sent all of us deep underground. There's a huge palace there. I don't know the exact location, but hot lava flows there. There's no entrance or exit. Apart from Mr. Moreau, no one can bring anyone in." "Then how did you get out?" "Mr. Moreau sent me out. He told me to buy some food and daily necessities." "How do we go back?" Bodhi shook his head. "He said that he'll teleport me back in 12 hours. I don't know how exactly he did it." Chan Zhao looked at Lila Gavik. Gavik shook his head. "I can't do anything about this kind of time-fixed teleportation spell. Plus, I don't even know if the underground palace is under Los Angeles. Is there a way to stop him from being teleported away?" Chan Zhao asked, pointing at Bodhi. "That's possible." Chan Zhao had already considered it. If he couldn't stop Bodhi from being teleported away, he would kill him directly. After all, he was his captive now. An escaped captive wasn't a good captive. Moreover, if Bodhi was hiding deep underground, even the most advanced tracking devices probably wouldn't be able to locate him. After all, no signal could be transmitted under the thick rock stratum. Even magic probably wouldn't be able to do that. This was why many powerful creatures had long lifespans. In order to avoid being tracked by their enemies, they would bury themselves in the ground for decades, centuries, or even millennia. Then, when their enemies were all dead, they would wake up on their own. This move was a bit shameless, but it was very effective. Chin Zhao couldn't do anything about it either. Then Lila Gavik cast a confinement spell on Bodhi. Apart from sealing his teleportation, it also sealed his power. Chan Zhao also informed West to come and take Bodhi away. Before he left, Lila Gavik emphasized the matter of the 1,000 Faces spell again. After getting into the car, Chin Zhao called the handsome guy. But as soon as he picked up, an extremely horrifying face appeared on the screen. Chin Zhao had seen a lot of things, after all. However, the demon's face still gave Chin Zhao a fright. "Handsome guy, it's me. What are you scared by my face?" "A little. The scene was too horrifying." "Is this your real face?" "This is my extreme evil form," the handsome guy said. "Why are you showing this form? Are you trying to scare me?" "I just killed a secondary demon king." "Secondary demon kings are all your descendants, right?" Lucifer was the only demon king without descendants. But the birth of every secondary demon king required Lucifer's blood. Therefore, every secondary demon king was equivalent to Lucifer's descendant. "They're my descendants, but so what? I can create as many as I want. It's like the sperm you shot out. Do you care about their lives?" Chan Zhao suddenly didn't know how to retort. Fine, those secondary demon kings were indeed just sperm to the handsome guy. "Do you need to become like this to kill a secondary demon king?" "No, it's just to show my cruel side. If it's the face I show to you, it's hard to associate me with cruelty." The handsome guy recovered his original face, or rather, one of his faces. It was the normal face that Qin Zhao often saw. Why did you call me? Do you know the thousand-faced spell? No, but Belial does. You can go find her. The thousand-face spell has a limited bloodline? There's actually a spell that you don't know. It's not that I can't learn it, but the 7 of us don't touch the spells that each other created. The thousand-faced spell was created by Belial, so the other 6 don't know it. But other than the most traditional thousand-faced spell, there should be many lesser demons who modified it after touching it. Chapter 2790. What's the difference between the thousand faces spell modified by other demons and the one she created? Belia's thousand faces technique doesn't just allow her to transform into a myriad of forms. Each of her faces has a unique power. For example, if she can transform into a dragon, she will have the power of a dragon. If she transforms into a phoenix, she will have an undying and indestructible body. Moreover, the identity she transforms into will even exceed the limit of the original strength of this identity. Let's take the ancestral dragon as an example. If Belia transforms into a dragon, she will be even more powerful than the ancestral dragon. Moreover, she can change her face at will without any restrictions. The handsome guy said, "Of course, this is because she's Belial, so she can overcome all kinds of restrictions. The versions that other demons cultivate naturally can't be as close to omnipotent as Belial. To put it bluntly, the thousand faces technique that other demons have modified is a reduced version of the thousand faces technique, and some of the thousand faces technique have already changed beyond recognition." Of course, Qin Zhao knew that these demon kings were indescribably powerful, even if the handsome guy's description was already terrifying enough. This was just the tip of the iceberg. When you think that the strength of the great demon king that you are serving is everything, then it would be the moment of your death. Apart from Belia, no one else knows the complete thousand faces spell? Suddenly, a terrifying wave of energy exploded from the phone screen without any warning. Even the handsome young man had disappeared from the other end of the phone screen. The next moment, a graceful figure appeared on the other side of the screen. "I heard you were looking for me. Belia was here." More accurately, the handsome guy's phone had fallen into Belia's hands. Their surroundings were Belia's palace. She still had that graceful figure and that unparalleled beauty. "No, I wasn't looking for you." Chen Zhao instinctively denied it. "Is that so?" Belial's voice rose slightly. "I heard you calling my name." In their conversation, Chen Zhao had only mentioned Belia's name once, but the handsome guy had mentioned it countless times. But nothing happened when the handsome guy called Belia's name. Why did she sense it instantly when he called Belia's name? Moreover, he was separated from her by a world. "Okay, I was looking for you." "What?" "If I want the thousand faces technique, what price do you want me to pay?" The handsome young man had already said that this was definitely Belial's trump card. Under normal circumstances, she would never share it with others. However, Qin Zhao still had a sliver of hope. "I'll tell you tonight." Belial smiled charmingly. Qin Zhao shuddered. Then they tacitly didn't continue this topic. There was a type of woman who couldn't be fed enough. Qin Zhao thought that he had the best stamina among humans. Unfortunately, facing this demon king, Qin Zhao really felt like he was powerless even though he wanted to, although it was very embarrassing for a man. However, this woman was called Belia. Belial tilted his head slightly and looked outside the palace. "Okay, the call ends here. That guy is here to ask for his stuff." As he spoke, the phone returned to the handsome boy's hand. Even the background had changed. "Belial agreed to your request." "You can say that you've agreed." Chen Zhao's expression was bitter. He didn't know if the medicine from Soul Supply would work on him. The suppression brought about by the difference in levels was often in all aspects. After thinking for a while, Qin Zhao still gave up on this idea. The strongest man in the world would never buy medicine. Just then West called. "Hey, President, when are you coming to the headquarters?" "What?" Did Body provide any more information? It's not about that guy. The elder from the Crypt Demons contacted me. He said that some large spider demons have appeared around their territory. They can't handle them, so they want us to help. Chen Zhao thought for a moment and asked, "Do you need me to help?" "I hope that Gaia will lead the team this time. Jalanash, Norma, Hallies, and Angelit will be in charge," Wes said. "With their current strength, it shouldn't be a problem to deal with the Arachne. The large Arachne are more difficult to deal with. You guys better be careful. Also, the large Arachne have some kind of golden substance on their bodies. You guys better bring Ruan Faxben along and let him refine that golden substance. There was a period of time when I relied on absorbing golden substance to break through the bottleneck." "Okay, got it." Qin Zhao hung up and saw a police car parked by the road. The person in the car was someone he knew, Sharon. Qin Zhao parked the car behind the police car. "Hi, Sharon." "Chen." Sharon glanced at Chen Zhao. "Long time no see. How have you been?" "Not bad. I went back to China during Chinese New Year. How are you? You don't seem to be in the transportation department anymore." "I'm not, but I still have the right to enforce the law." With that, Sharon looked back at Chen Zhao's car. "My car is parked in the parking space. Sorry to disappoint you." Just then, a young police officer walked out of a coffee shop with 2 cups of coffee in his hands. Seeing Chen Zhao standing before the police car, his expression darkened. When he looked at Chen Zhao, his eyes were filled with hostility. "Sharon, here's your coffee. Do you know him?" "My friend," Sharon said as she took the coffee. Chen Zhao glanced at the young officer and chuckled. "You're starting to lead newbies now. I can't help it. LAPD is short on manpower recently. Wade Deli just graduated, but he needs to familiarize himself with his job. Sharon, I think I'm a qualified officer now. I'm not a newbie." "I'm your partner," Wade Deli said, dissatisfied. "Is that what you think?" "Of course. Good. If you can beat this guy in combat, I'll admit that you're a qualified officer and a qualified partner." "Him." Wei Deli looked at Chen Zhao. Chen Zhao was around 8 meters tall, much smaller than him. Wei Deli then looked at Sharon. "Are you sure you want me to fight with your friend?" Wei Deli seemed hesitant, but his tone was actually provocative. "Of course, I'm sure." Sharon smiled and looked at Chen Zhao. "You don't mind helping your friend, right?" "Of course not," Chen Zhao said, chuckling. "It's everyone's dream to beat up a police officer legally." Wei Deli snorted. "Sir, you better take off your expensive brand first. I can't afford it. Also, let me say that I'm the new champion of the police school." Chen Zhao struck a pose. Tai Chi Chin Family. Chapter 2791. "Fuck!" Wei Deli immediately followed up with a left hook. Chen Zhao didn't know Tai Chi, not at all. But for a high-level existence, he could still fool others. Even if he didn't know, he could still fool others. Plus, his opponent knew even less. Chen Zhao first used a formless Tai Chi move to dissolve Wei Deli's attack. Wei Deli was dumbfounded. In fact, Chen Zhao's move relied on the guidance of the small world. But to Wei Deli, Chen Zhao's move was very mysterious. Many foreigners were obsessed with Chinese kung fu. Wei Deli wasn't that kind of fan, but that didn't stop him from being poisoned. Just now, Chen Zhao had only gently touched his fist and pulled it back slightly, but Chen Zhao had managed to deviate his charged attack. Wei Deli couldn't help but get serious. At first, he was just joking. After all, Chen Zhao wasn't a criminal. His hostility toward Chen Zhao was mostly because of Sharon and Chen Zhao's intimacy and familiarity. It made him jealous. Plus, he wanted to act cool in front of Sharon. So he didn't plan on doing anything to Chen Zhao. Chen Zhao hooked his hand. Wei Deli rushed to Chen Zhao in a few steps. It was the same punch again, but this time it was a right hook. This time, Chen Zhao seemed to be welcoming it. Then, he sent a palm toward Wei Deli's chest, combining strength and gentleness. At first, Wei Deli was amused. What could such a light palm do to him? But the next moment, he lost control and flew several meters away. His entire back smashed into the police car door. Bang! Even Shalon was frightened by the loud noise. She knew that Chen Zhao was very good at fighting, very, very good. But she didn't think that Chen Zhao would hit Wei Deli too hard. But her car door was deformed. That wasn't hard. Wei Deli was dumbfounded. He looked back at the car door and then touched his hands and feet. They didn't hurt at all. Wei Deli felt like he'd discovered a new world. Wei Deli immediately used his ultimate move. This move was limited by his bloodline. It was his first time using it, but Wei Deli learned it himself. He used a max-level move right away. Thud, Master, please accept me as your disciple. When a foreigner met a master's unique move, he knelt, kowtowed, and made a strange Sherfu sound. Chun Zhao was also shocked. What kind of show was this? Chun Zhao had come up with this idea on the spur of the moment. He wanted to play the role of a martial arts master. Why did they collide with each other before the fight was even over? Sharon looked at him. She was not interested in whether he knew martial arts or not. Anyway, even if Chen Zhao didn't use that China Kung Fu, he could still beat Wei Deli up. Chin, you pay for the repair fee. Send me the bill. Chin Zhao shrugged. Also, if you don't pull him off my leg, I'll really beat him up. Master, please accept me as your disciple. Chin Zhao shook off Wei Deli, but Wei Deli pounced at him again. Wei Deli, you better behave yourself. Sharon went up and pulled Wei Deli away. Master, Master. Chin Zhao rolled his eyes and left. Wei Deli watched Chin Zhao's sports car leave. His soul almost flew away with it. Sarah, where does Master Chin live? Just give up. He will never accept you as his disciple. Why? I'm very sincere. Do you think a billionaire will waste time teaching a stranger martial arts? His last disciple is the former boxing champion, Tiger. Tiger is his disciple? No wonder he's so strong, Wei Deli said enviously. But he was still defeated by Syndicate in the end. Syndicate is also his disciple, Sharon said calmly. Then I'll definitely be his third disciple. Sharon chuckled. She did not plan on continuing to hurt Wei Deli's confidence. Chin Zhao had just returned home and was taking a bath. Suddenly he felt dizzy. Cursing, he dove into the water before he could get out of the bathtub. When he opened his eyes again, he found himself in Belial's palace. Belia was still lying on her throne in a graceful and luxurious manner. Belial, how can you affect me in the human world? In Chun Zhao's memory, the handsome guy had said that even he could not pass through the world wall and affect the human world. But Belial could actually make him fall asleep in the human world. Belial looked at Chin Zhao with a smile. Guess, if you get it right, you'll be rewarded. If you get it wrong, you'll be punished. Because you're very powerful. Wrong. Smiling, Belial licked her red lips. Chin Zhao's expression stiffened. You should know what kind of punishment you'll receive, right? You don't need to change your size this time. I'll shrink. To be honest, Belial was a perfect lover. She could satisfy all the fantasies men had about women. Moreover, she could change her aura, appearance, and even body according to her needs. But she was only close. She was not truly perfect. Perhaps Chen Zhao himself was not perfect enough. That was why he felt that Belial was not perfect enough. Belial had clearly learned some skills from her maid. Then she practiced it on Chen Zhao. After a hearty battle, there was a moment of warmth. This is what I promised you. Belial stuffed a gem into Chen Zhao's hand. This is 1,000 faces. I'm not learning this myself. I'm giving it to a friend. Is that okay? Since I'm giving it to you, you can give it to whoever you want, Belial said nonchalantly. I heard from the handsome guy that this is your ultimate move. Are you sure it's okay? Belial suddenly laughed. That guy didn't say that. He won't say that. Plus, you seem to have misunderstood. This is just a spell I developed. It's a relatively complete spell, but it has nothing to do with my ultimate move. There are many demons who know the complete Thousand Faces spell, but not a single one can master it. Talent or bloodline? Qin Zhao asked. Because I don't want them to learn it. What kind of logic is that? You gave them the complete Thousand Faces spell, but you don't want them to learn it? Also, since they have the spell, can you stop them from learning it just because you don't want to? Of course. Fine. For existences like them, many things that even Chen Zhao found unbelievable were as easy as lifting a finger to them. So you're saying that even if I give them the spell, they might not be able to learn it? I'll allow them to learn it. As for whether they can learn it or not, their talent is still the biggest test. Chapter 2792. When Chen Zhao woke up again, he realized that he was still in the water, face down. Fei Lai had come back some time ago. She was removing her makeup in the bathroom. Glancing at Chen Zhao, who had woken up, Fei Lai was not curious about his strange behavior at all. Darling, were you asleep just now? Chen Zhao wiped the water off his face. Yes. You put on makeup at work? Chen Zhao asked, confused. No. Angel Beach was temporarily closed in the afternoon. I went shopping with a few colleagues, Fei Lai said as she removed her makeup. L.A. seems a bit messy recently. Yeah. Chen Zhao touched his head. It's indeed a bit messy. Even Fei Lai could feel it. This meant that L.A. was really messy, to the extent that even ordinary people could feel it. At the dining table, the children were still as quiet as they should be and frolicking about. The pets in the house went in and out too. Every now and then, a pet would come to the table to ask for food. Among them, Simba, Nana, Briar, and Bramble were the most frequent. Because of their young age, everyone spoiled them. So, they were the most unscrupulous. They were already 2 years old. Briar and Bramble grew the fastest, and they were a size bigger than Simba and Nana. The food at home was good too. Although they were still young, they were already quite big. When they stood up, they were more than a meter tall and weighed close to 30 kilograms. However, compared to their mother, Princess, they were still insignificant. Simba and Nana's mounts were African lions. Their growth cycle was actually shorter than brown bears, but Briar and Bramble's genes came from Princess. So Simba and Nana were still much smaller than Briar and Bramble. Nevertheless, Simba and Nana, Briar and Bramble had all entered a rapid growth stage. Now, they would gain several kilograms almost every month. Speaking of freaks, little Jerlin was undoubtedly the #1 freak in the family. Her prestige in the pet circle could be said to be powerful. Every day, she would patrol the territory with Briar, Bramble, Simba, and Nana. Occasionally, she would also patrol with her little fangirl, little Larissa. Little Larissa was almost a year old. She was completely weaned off milk. She was also little Jerlin's #1 fan. Every day, she looked forward to little Jerlin taking her out. They were not old enough to think. Right now, they were still in the carefree stage. Chun Zhao had been considering whether he should start exposing Jerlin to magic. Little Jerlin was destined to be exposed to magic. After all, she had unparalleled talent. There was also the identity of the Witch of Nirvana, which was extremely rare since ancient times. She was already inextricably linked to the spirit world. She would also have to face some problems in the future. Chen Zhao didn't have any strange ideas. For example, magic was the source of misfortune and disaster. Or perhaps a childhood that was exposed to magic was a miserable childhood. In the spirit world, or at the edge of the spirit world, they would blame their miserable childhood on magic. Of course, Qin Zhao wouldn't let this happen to his child. Don't tell me that strangers want to harm them. Even getting close to it was impossible. The reason why Qin Zhao was considering whether to give little Jerlin the silent spell was that he had been thinking about it for a long time. It was mainly because Jerlin was too young. She might not be able to fully control Nirvana. Moreover, Nirvana magic itself was a very dangerous magic. At least, that was what a few knowledgeable people said. Chen Zhao didn't understand it himself. He'd read books on Nirvana magic. He could understand it, but he couldn't practice it. People would always be afraid of things they didn't understand. Chen Zhao was no exception. This was why he had been hesitant and didn't let Jerlin learn Nirvana magic. As for little Larissa, her talent wasn't below Jerlin's. After all, she'd awakened on the third night the day she was born. This kind of talent could be said to be unparalleled in history. Fortunately, little Larissa didn't have any special attributes. Compared to Jerlin, little Larissa's future magic path was clearly easier to guide. The next day, Chen Zhao went to New Moon Villa. "Mr. Chin, why are you here again?" Lila Gavich looked at Chen Zhao, confused. Chen Zhao took out the gem that contained the Thousand Faces spell that he'd gotten from Belial. "I'm here to give you this." Lila Gavich accepted the gem. Looking at the dazzling seven-colored gem, he said, "It's beautiful, but what's it for?" "It contains the Thousand Faces spell. A friend from hell gave it to me," Chen Zhao said. "That fast?" Lila Gavich was shocked. He knew that Chen Zhao's connections reached all the way to hell, but he'd also asked around. The Thousand Faces spell had an extraordinary origin. Even Chen Zhao might not be able to get it so easily. He didn't think that he'd underestimated Chen Zhao's influence in hell. It had only been one night, and Chen Zhao had already obtained the Thousand Faces spell. "It's okay." Chen Zhao shrugged. "Did you pay any price?" Lila Gavich asked. Suddenly, Lila Gavich realized that Chen Zhao's expression was strange. He seemed to be in pain and hesitation. What did this mean? Did he pay a huge price? But why did he feel reluctant to leave? Lila Gavich didn't understand. "Forget it. It's just a small matter." In the end, Chen Zhao waved his hand. He couldn't tell Lila Gavich that he'd sacrificed his body for the Thousand Faces spell. Anyway, he and Belial were already used to each other. There was nothing to announce, but Lila Gavich let his imagination run wild and filled in the blanks on his own. He felt that Chen Zhao must have paid a huge price, and he couldn't pay it back. So he pretended to be relaxed. This made Lila Gavich feel bad. He didn't think that his request would put Chen Zhao in such a difficult position. "I don't know how to extract the Thousand Faces spell from the gem," Chen Zhao said. "The person who gave it to me didn't say. Try it yourself. If you really can't extract it, I'll ask the person again." "Are there any restrictions to cultivating this spell?" "This spell has a very powerful origin. Apart from Enyaxalai and Bellori, I don't recommend anyone else to cultivate it. You probably won't believe me even if I tell you the specific reason. Only they're allowed to cultivate this spell." Lila Gavich didn't really understand. But since Chen Zhao said this, there had to be a reason. Lila didn't plan on forcefully taking the spell. After all, he'd prepared it for his adopted daughter. Moreover, he'd asked Chen Zhao for the spell. If he really needed some powerful spell, he could ask Chen Zhao for one. He didn't have to get the Thousand Faces spell. Chapter 2793. On the way back, Chen Zhao saw a group of hoodlums enter a restaurant. Chen Zhao parked the car at the entrance and watched what was happening in the restaurant. The hoodlums had blatantly eaten and dashed away. They even beat up the staff. Before the police came, they swaggered away. Chen Zhao drove slowly behind the hoodlums. They entered a bar, Hellfire Bar. Chen Zhao stayed at the street corner and kept staring at the bar. After 10 minutes, Chen Zhao took out his phone. "West, send that Bodhi to me. I'm on Mingdi Street, opposite a bar called Hellfire." "President, what do you want this guy for?" "I have some ideas," Chen Zhao said. A while later, Jal and Nash sent Bodhi over. Nal had come with Jolene and Nash. "Why is she here?" Chen Zhao looked at Nar. Chen Zhao had seen Nar twice. He only remembered that Nar was Jal and Nash's sister. Apparently, they were related by blood, but they were quite far apart. "She's been playing at the headquarters these days. She heard that I have a mission. So she came to join in the fun, Jalanash said. President, do you want to do it? If it's just a normal person, I don't mind helping you. Nor shouldn't mind either. Why were Jalanash and Nar so excited? Because Chun Zhao had the legal right to use violence. The Anti-Terrorism Security Department had already sent out a notice. No matter what, they had to restore order to LA. Since this mission had been sent to the supernatural organization, it meant that they had the right to use magic and supernatural powers on normal people. The English gang was too violent. It caused the security of LA to plummet. It also touched the government's bottom line. No matter which government it was, they didn't like a situation that they couldn't control. LA's security was clearly beyond the government's control now. In troubled times, severe punishment was necessary. This saying was also true in Los Angeles. That was why the supernatural organization was given this power. Of course, the decision was still in Chun Zhao's hands. We're going to do it, but not me or you. Chun Zhao looked at the back seat of Jalanash's car. Bodhi, who was sitting in Jalanash's car, seemed to feel Chun Zhao's gaze. He lowered his head, subconsciously avoiding Chun Zhao's gaze. Bring him here. Bodhi was very obedient as a lamb. If they didn't know this guy's identity, they probably wouldn't believe that he was a ruthless character who killed his wife to prove his Tao. Do you know this place? Chun Zhao pointed at Hellfire Bar. Yes, it's Big Golden Tooth's territory. However, Big Golden Tooth was killed and is now under the control of one of Mr. Miro's trusted aides. Go in and kill him, Chun Zhao said. Bodhi widened his eyes and stared at Chun Zhao in shock. Chun Zhao glanced at Bodhi. What? Is there a problem? No, no problem at all. Bodhi knew why Chun Zhao asked him to do this, but he had no choice. Oh, remember to keep them alive. Chun Zhao patted Bodhi's shoulder. Bodhi went in dejectedly. Not long after, there was a commotion in the bar. First, a few dancers escaped from the bar. Then, a few punks with blood all over their faces escaped from the bar. It was morning, and there were definitely no ordinary customers in the bar. Then there was the sound of gunfire. About 20 minutes later, Yi Zichen sat down. Bodhi walked out of the bar covered in blood. I've already completed the mission. Bodhi looked at Chun Zhao expressionlessly. Slower than I thought. Chun Zhao said indifferently, Don't drip blood on my car door. Bodhi took 2 steps back. President, you want him to be the traitor? At least make the English gang think that he's a traitor? Will it work? No one can tolerate traitors, Chun Zhao said. Also, it's time to fix LA's law and order. If we don't do anything, it'll cause even more trouble. Let's go to the next place. Don't let that guy get in my car. I don't want my new car to be dirted. I'll call the bank and clear your car loan, Chun Zhao said. I'll be happy to help you, President. When did you learn to be as greedy as an elite? President, you don't know how much my daily expenses are. Makeup, clothes, house, car, and magic items all need money. I can understand Angelite's difficulties now. Chun Zhao rolled his eyes. No matter how hard Jalanash made it sound, her income was actually more than most people in the world. The most effective way to solve chaos was violence. Whether it was mediation, legal support, or any other methods, they were far less effective than violence. Looking back at human history, there were far more cases of ending wars with war than through negotiation. Jalanash hung up the phone. President, I don't want to listen to your long speech. I just want to know when it's NAR and my turn. They'd already gone to 4 places. Chun Zhao only had Bodhi fight each time. Jalanash had completely become a driver. NAR, who'd been a volunteer fighter, complained incessantly. She'd come to join in the fun, not to Terrell. Hey, it's about time, Chun Zhao said. The next stop is the lumberyard. Really? Do we have a chance to fight? We've been to 4 places in a row, and Bodhi has killed quite a number of people. No matter what, the other side has already reacted. The logging site is remote, and it's a good place for them to gather. If we're lucky, there should be one or two decent opponents. Chen Zhao glanced at Bodhi, who was sitting in his passenger seat. Bodhi had already gone to 4 places, other than the 4 gang leaders that Chen Zhao had asked him to kill. He'd also killed close to 20 people. But he wasn't unscathed. He'd been shot in the thigh, hit with a stick, and kicked a few times. Right now, it was already impressive that he could keep 30 to 40% of his abilities. Bodhi was actually quite strong. What he meant by not bad was that taking on 4 gangsters alone was already his limit. With his strength, it was unrealistic for him to purge the entire underground world of Los Angeles in a day. But Chen Zhao didn't want to wait that long. He hoped to calm the entire underground world in the shortest time possible. Of course, he would use Chen Zhao's original plan. Kill until blood flowed like a river. Then he would use the gang's best method to solve problems. Sometimes, no matter how much he thought, it would be faster and more convenient to fight. Chapter 2794. Chen Zhao and Jalanash's car drove into the logging field. One had to admit that the scale of the welcome was unprecedentedly grand. It was so grand that Bodhi couldn't help but tremble. There were at least 100 gangsters in the field before them. Most of them had guns too. Gangsters. In this land, guns were always the mainstream. Those with knives, daggers, or clubs could only be considered hooligans. Nelson sat in Jalanash's car. She seemed to regret coming here too. This was because the formation was bigger than she'd imagined. She didn't think that she could deal with almost 200 gunmen. She'd probably be over in a single round of gunfire. On the other hand, Jalanash was extremely excited. The car stopped and Jalanash pushed open the door excitedly. This is the stage I've been waiting for. This is the stage that belongs to me. Opposite them, a man and a woman sat on the hood of the car, watching Jalanash's arrogant attitude and words. Is that woman our target? No, but since we're here, it should be related to Bodhi. Then Chen, Zhao, and Bodhi also got out of the car. The man and woman immediately jumped down from the car. Bodhi, you really betrayed Mr. Moreau. Bodhi wasn't going to explain. It didn't matter if he was sincere or not. It couldn't cover up what he'd done. Are they like you? Chen Zhao asked. They're core members too. Bodhi looked at the man and woman. The man is Palm Zisi. His ability is electricity, and he can create magnetism with it. It's best not to carry metal before him. The woman is Darlene Lopez. Her ability is fire. She and Palm Zisi are a couple now, so they basically work together. Palm Zisi looked at Bodhi and rubbed his hands. Electricity flowed between his fingers. Looks like you're not going to explain. There's nothing to explain, Bodhi said straightforwardly. Only the last person standing here has the right to listen to others' explanations. That's true. Palm Zisi raised his right arm. Crack, crack. All the gunmen raised their guns and pointed at Chen Zhao's group. The moment Palm Zisi lowered his arm, bullets rained down on them. Even Bodhi felt a suffocating pressure at this moment. Chen Zhao was strong, but could a human really stop a hail of bullets like this? However, when the bullets got within 10 meters of Chen Zhao, they began to slow down. It was like hitting an invisible sponge. According to the different trajectories, the depth of penetration of each bullet could be clearly seen. But overall, there wasn't much difference. Bullets hovered in the air. It would not be an exaggeration to say that the scene was breathtaking. Palm Zisi and Darlene Lopez couldn't help but look surprised. Is this Bodhi's air wall? No, it's not Bodhi's ability. It was the ability of the man beside Bodhi. Both of their pupils suddenly shrank. The next moment, Chen Zhao suddenly waved his hand. In an instant, all the bullets flew back. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The sound of something piercing through the air rose and fell for a few seconds. At the same time, it was accompanied by the screams of the gunmen beside Palm Zisi and Darlene Lopez. In the blink of an eye, the imposing formation had turned into a river of blood. Both of their skin tensed up in an instant. This person's power was so terrifying that it made their scalps go numb. More than 200 gunmen had been killed instantly. Anyone would feel their head explode in such a situation. Qin Zhao had a faint smile on his face, but in everyone's eyes it was a demonic smile. Supernatural things are supernatural. Don't let ordinary people get involved in our fights. What do you think? The scene turned awkward. You killed all the ordinary people, and then you say don't let ordinary people get involved? We object vehemently. But what's the use of objecting? Why don't you let them come back to life and fight? But considering how dangerous Qin Zhao was, everyone silently agreed with Qin Zhao's suggestion. Of course. Jalanash was the only one who looked calm. Even she could easily deal with such a small scene, not to mention Qin Zhao. When one's power reached a certain level, numbers really couldn't restrain them. Unfortunately for Qin Zhao, Jalanash was also in the same situation. I'll finish up now. Jalanash opened her arms. Behind her, there was a strange scene drawn by the collision of flames and ice. Jalanash was advancing toward her goal with determination and speed. The world's top elemental sorcerer. Of course, she wasn't one right now. She wasn't even in the top 10. But she believed that in the next 10 years, she would have the chance to reach this height. Ice and fire intertwined, creating a surreal visual impact. Paul Mazzisi and Darlene Lopez's pupils contracted. Jalanash gave them a sense of danger. Paul Mazzisi attacked Jalanash first, but he didn't use the most primitive lightning attack. Instead, he controlled the falling bullets around him and shot them at Jalanash. Paul Mazzisi used electricity to create a huge and powerful electromagnetic field. Suddenly, Jalanash's body was covered in her own flames. The next moment, her body was covered in a layer of elemental scale armor. When the metal bullets landed on her skin, they all melted and changed shape. Before they even got close, they turned into liquid metal. Fire Dragon Body. It was the ultimate form of fire magic. Cultivating this spell didn't just require powerful spells. There was something else that was necessary. Fire Dragon Blood. This was an extremely rare and precious magic material in the outside world. It was basically a commodity in the supernatural organization. The body of the fire dragon allowed the spellcaster to transform into a form similar to the fire dragon. Not only did it have extremely strong defensive power, but it also had a powerful defensive ability. It didn't just have powerful defense, it also had powerful physical attacks. Jalanash's power wasn't out of Qin Zhao's expectations, but Nair was terrified. When did his childhood playmate and little sister become so terrifying? Jalanash didn't use her fire dragon body to advance further. The flames on her body extinguished immediately, replaced by an extremely cold dragon body. This was her self-created ice dragon body. Before this, there wasn't such a spell in the spiritual world. Through modifying some magic formulas and modifying magic materials, as well as countless attempts, she finally succeeded in creating this spell. Ice Dragon Body was almost complete, but it wasn't perfect yet. Of course, this kind of opponent was more than enough to deal with a situation like this. Chapter 2795. Ice Dragon Body and Fire Dragon Body were opposites, but the principles and training methods were the same. They both needed the dragon's blood as the initial medium. Nevertheless, Ice Dragon Body made up for some of the flaws of Fire Dragon Body, and this was under the condition that Ice Dragon Body wasn't complete yet. One had to admit that Jalanash's magic talent were being displayed bit by bit with Qin Zhao's support. Covered in Ice Dragon Body, Jalanash pressed her arms down, and the Ice Dragon claws landed on the ground too. Instantly, extremely cold ice engulfed a radius of a few hundred meters. Even Qin Zhao had to hide in the sky so that he wouldn't be frozen. Nar and Body both stood on the roof of the car. Elemental magic was the magic that Qin Zhao yearned for the most when he first came into contact with the spiritual world. Elemental magic gathered almost all of Chen Zhao's fantasies about magic. It was extremely beautiful and powerful at the same time. One could say that elemental magic was synonymous with destruction. There were defensive spells in elemental magic too. However, when people heard about elemental magic, they first thought of violent flames, howling winds, cracked ground, and huge waves. Qin Zhao had to reach the Shangqing realm to be able to create such destructive power. But Jalanash was still very far away from Shangqing state. She already had such terrifying, destructive power. This was elemental magic. Of course, this kind of frozen area with a diameter of several hundred meters was just a frozen area. In reality, it wasn't very lethal. If it was another opponent, Jalanash probably wouldn't be able to gain an advantage. But neither Paul Mazzisi nor Darlene Lopez were very strong. They were about as strong as Body and hadn't fully developed their abilities either. But they were facing Jalanash, who'd been playing magic since she was young. Paul Mazzisi's attacks were mainly lightning attacks, magnetic fields, and metal attacks. These two didn't have any effect on Jalanash. Jalanash's ice dragon body and fire dragon body kept switching. The dragon's high magic resistance was also inherited by these two types of magic. One could say that Jalanash now had all the advantages of an elemental mage and made up for all their disadvantages. Qin Zhao glanced at Body. Does the England gang allow colleagues to date? Some companies even forbade office romance. Logically speaking, for an industry like theirs, didn't they first have to kill their wives to prove their Dao? Why were they still allowed to date? Bodhi was very dissatisfied with Chen Zhao's behavior. He was still in the mood to chat with him before the battle. While others were fighting for their lives over there, he was leisurely and contented here. It was very intolerable. "Mr. Moreau doesn't care," said Bodhi with his face tied. Suddenly, ice spikes rose from the ground, and then the ice spikes exploded. Darlene Lopez screamed. Her thigh was hit by the splashing ice, and a large piece of flesh was cut off. Paul Mzizi wanted to help, but with Jalanash in front of him, there was nothing he could do. Using the metal pieces, he used magnetic force to form a metal barrier, temporarily blocking the flying ice shards. But in the face of Jalanash's terrifying lethality, he could only struggle on his deathbed. Jalanash was too strong. He was so powerful that no one could resist him. Jalanash seemed to be tired of playing and wanted to change to another spell. Jalanash held Nash's palms together, and a huge amount of magic surged through her body. A huge red eye appeared above Jalanash's head. Pop! Instantly, a death ray shot out from the red eye. However, this death ray was much more powerful than a normal death ray. The death ray swept across, and hundreds of trees in front of them were instantly cut in half. Paul Mazzisi and Darlene Lopez were also lying on the ground, which was how they managed to dodge the attack. But they were also scared out of their wits. This kind of attack wasn't meant for humans at all. If it landed on a human, it would be no different from a missile or a cigarette, but after a round of 90-degree sweeps, Jalanash's second attack was coming. This time, she adjusted her angle. It seemed like she wanted to end the battle completely. Suddenly, two beams of light shot down from the sky and enveloped Paul Mzizi and Darlene Lopez. At the same time, they blocked Jalanash's death ray. Chen Zhao's eyes widened. "It's here." Chen Zhao suddenly flashed before the two beams. He reached out to grab Paul Mzizi and Darlene Lopez, who were in the light. However, when Chen Zhao's palms were at the elementary level, he felt that the two beams contained indescribably great power. He actually couldn't break through the protection of the two immediately. Chen Zhao's power suddenly increased by 10 times. The beams dimmed a lot and flickered unstably. Chen Zhao sensed a long-lost sense of familiarity from the beam of light. This power was very similar to the god of strength that Chen Zhao had felt before. The two should be very closely related. Chen Zhao finally broke through the beams. Everyone heard the sound of something shattering. Chen Zhao's hands also grabbed Paul Mzizi and Darlene Lopez. Just then, another 4 beams of light fell from the sky. This time, they didn't envelop anyone. Instead, 4 figures were teleported over. These 4 figures were not humans, but pure energy bodies. But they all wore golden armor and held knives, spears, swords, and axes. Without a word, they started attacking Chen Zhao directly. Chen Zhao first dragged Palm Zizi and Darlene Lopez out of the light and tossed them before Jalanash. At the same time, he raised his arm and punched the knife-wielding golden energy body. At the same time, the knife-wielding golden energy body slashed at Chen Zhao's shoulder. The golden-armored energy body didn't do anything other than creating a few sparks on Chen Zhao's shoulder. On the other hand, Chen Zhao's punch destroyed the golden-armored energy body directly. The golden armor was also distorted by Chen Zhao's punch. The energy body inside didn't die, but the armor was damaged and he was affected too. But he wasn't alone. Chen Zhao hadn't gotten his arm back yet. The other 3 golden-armored energy bodies attacked. The axe-wielding one lifted the axe, and it landed on Chen Zhao's arm. Of course, the result was that a corner of the axe was broken, while Chen Zhao was still unharmed. These energy bodies were probably god of power and weren't weak. Then, they gathered god of power through their magical golden armor. But if they wanted to defeat Chen Zhao with just these 4, it was a bit ridiculous. Chen Zhao didn't destroy the 4 golden-armored energy bodies directly because he wanted to collect the spoils of war. Otherwise, there wouldn't be anything left of them now. He also wanted to test it and see if he could gain more. Unfortunately, Chen Zhao knew nothing about the energy they contained. Apart from destroying them, he couldn't do anything else. Chapter 2796. These bodies of energy weren't weak, but they weren't that strong either. Any one of them could probably last more than 10 minutes against Jalanash. But in front of Chen Zhao, they really weren't enough. But to completely destroy them, Chen Zhao had to use up all their divine power. Every time Chen Zhao destroyed their golden armor, their divine power would be restored. But divine power wasn't limitless, so it wasn't impossible to completely destroy them. Chen Zhao hadn't completely destroyed them yet because he needed to study divine power. He even wanted to collect it. Unfortunately, he couldn't find a way to do so. Even if he used the suction power of the small world, he couldn't extract it. This wasn't any kind of energy that Chen Zhao knew of. Of course, Chen Zhao had also considered bringing the golden armor back. But if it was really that easy, then Chen Zhao wouldn't have to worry anymore. Once Chen Zhao restrained the golden armor, the divine power would be depleted even faster. A moment later, Chen Zhao had destroyed 2 bodies of energy. The remaining 2 had used up 70 to 80% of their divine power. Chen Zhao wasn't in a hurry to destroy the 2 bodies of energy. Instead, he waited to see if there would be reinforcements. Unfortunately, Chen Zhao didn't see any after waiting for a long time. One of the bodies of energy had already used up all its divine power. It froze on the spot, losing its original spirit. The other was still moving, but it was like a toy that was about to run out of battery. Its movements were also intermittent. Chen Zhao had also lost his patience. He destroyed it with a few punches and kicks. At the same time, he put away the golden armor. He didn't expect to get anything useful. But who knew? One had to have some dreams. Maybe there would be a miracle. As for Palm Zizi and Darlene Lopez, they were already frightened by Chen Zhao's battle with the 4 bodies of energy. They were Milo Tanzik Williams's trusted subordinates. Of course, they knew what the 4 bodies of energy were. That was why they were shocked that Chen Zhao could actually defeat them. Chen Zhao wasn't very satisfied with the operation this time. Of course, this was just the beginning. As long as Milo Tanzik Williams didn't want to reshuffle the entire L.A., then he wouldn't be a coward for the rest of his life. Chen Zhao would purge all of Los Angeles in the shortest time possible and force them to show themselves. Unless the other party really wanted to be a coward until the end, Chen Zhao really couldn't do anything. Let's go. You 2 get in my car. I think we have a lot to talk about. Paul Mzexi and Darlene Lopez got into Chen Zhao's car obediently. This car hasn't been driven for a long time. I hope you won't damage it. Don't even dirty it. Paul Mzexi and Darlene Lopez were speechless. She didn't know how to reply. However, the car did look very new. In fact, Chen Zhao had bought this gray supercar for more than half a year. However, he had only driven it recently because the blue supercar he drove last time was blown up by Tim. Do you know where Milo Tanzik Williams is hiding? Chen Zhao asked. The two of them shook their heads at the same time. It wasn't that they didn't want to say it, but they really didn't know. They also guessed that Bodhi might be in the same situation as them. Since Bodhi had admitted defeat, there was no reason for them to persist. To them, there was no difference between being loyal to Milo and Chen Zhao. What are those 4 energy bodies? Mr. Milo made them. He said they're the god of war, Ares, holy armor. Holy armor. Chen Zhao complained. What a terrible name. It's better to call it Saint Seiya. The two lowered their heads. No one knew what they were thinking. That Milo Tanzik Williams can actually make this thing? Chen Zhao was surprised by what Paul Mzexi and Darlene Lopez had said. Putting aside the difficulty of making this thing, he was sure that the holy armor contained divine power. That Milo Tanzik Williams could actually make this thing. That meant that he also had divine power. Had he also obtained God's authority? Or was he a demigod? It was even possible that he was the one who had defeated Ares. And Milo Tanzik Williams might just be an identity he used to deceive others. All these were possible, but for now, Chen Zhao didn't have any more information. I heard from Bodhi that he's the only one active in LA. Why are you here? Bodhi originally came out to purchase supplies, but he disappeared after he came out. On the 3rd day after he disappeared, which was last night, we were sent here. In addition to taking over Bodhi's mission, we are also responsible for investigating Bodhi's whereabouts. Today, we received news that Bodhi is wantonly attacking the peripheral gang members, so we concluded that he betrayed Mr. Moreau, Paul Mazisi said. Then does your Mr. Milo not have any way to control you? Chen Zhao was a bit confused. If it was a normal faction, if it was a normal organization like the supernatural organization, it would be a stable cooperative relationship. Everyone came together for the same ideals and suitable environment. Naturally, there wouldn't be anything like control. But the core members of the England gang didn't have very strong bonds. Most of them were tied together by power and benefits. Therefore, Milo Tanzik Williams couldn't have no restrictions on him. Yes, he said that if he can give us power, he can take it back, Darlene Lopez said. In the past, some people had their power taken back by him, but he needs to face us and touch us at the same time. What's with the 4 holy armors? Why did they suddenly appear? Before Mr. Milo sent us to LA, he gave us something to ask for help. Darlene and I both have one. Paul took out a golden stone the size of a finger. If we're in danger, we just need to send our power in and we'll be saved. I did it twice. The first time was the light beam that teleported us, and the second time was the holy armors. But before this, we didn't know it would be like this. Other than you, is there anyone else active in LA? Chen Zhao asked. There should be, Paul Mzisi said, but we don't know who exactly it is. Mr. Milo might be looking for something in LA. Darlene Lopez suddenly interrupted. After Mr. Moreau came to Los Angeles, he went to 2 auctions and robbed the collections of 4 collectors. Chapter 2797. Do you know what he's looking for? Chen Zhao asked. Both of them shook their heads, indicating that they didn't know. Tell me what's special about your hiding place. Then, the 2 of them told him where they were hiding. What they said was similar to what Bodhi had said. There wasn't anything else that surprised Chen Zhao. However, they said that Milo Tanzik Williams had come to LA to find something. Chen Zhao couldn't help but suspect that their goal had never been for LA's benefit. Or rather, the benefit of the gangs in LA was secondary. Chen Zhao sent Paul Massey and Darlene Lopez to the headquarters of the supernatural organization. Qin Zhao found Ruan Faxpen. Ruan, take a look at these things. Chen Zhao took out the 4 golden armors. Of course, 2 of them were already scrap metal. The other one was still intact, but the main body still had many defects. Only one had stopped because it had used up its divine power, so it was the most intact. These are... Look at the craftsmanship and the magic characteristics. I hope to get a complete report. The more detailed, the better. President, where did these come from? It's related to Olympus, Qin Zhao said. Apparently, they were created by Ares, the god of war. They're called holy armors, but according to people who know, they seem to be made by a human. At the same time, Chen Zhao told him about the battle with the holy armors. At the same time, he explained his understanding of the 4 divine armors. How long do you need to study them? Qin Zhao looked at Ruan Faxpen, who was flipping through the 4 armors. I need to see the technical content of these things first. I can't give you any information right now, nor can I confirm how long I need. Qin Zhao found a place to sit down. He wasn't in a hurry. He didn't have any useful information at hand, so there was no point in being anxious. After half an hour, Ruan Faxpen finally put down his research and turned to Qin Zhao. Leader, this isn't a popular alchemy technique at the moment. The magic runes, vein patterns, and the application of mana are very special and novel. Mana can also be used, but the function of mana is very weak against this kind of magic armor. I estimate that under normal circumstances, using mana at full power would only achieve a success rate of 10%. That's not strange. Divine power should be more advanced than magic. Guild leader, do you want to test your mana? Chen Zhao didn't use magic power, but immortal power. Ruan Faxi did not know much about this. However, he knew that Chen Zhao's mana was very different from normal people's. How? I'll make a simple mana connection device first. You can then channel your mana into the magic armor through the mana connection device. Sure. Chen Zhao waited for Ruan Faxpen to finish the magic connection device. Following Roland's instructions, he channeled his mana into the magic armor. This magic armor was the only one that remained intact. In an instant, a bright light flashed through the gaps of the magic armor. However, most of the light was blocked by the armor, but through the gap he could still see the light inside. However, it was different from the golden light from before. At this moment, the inside of the magic armor was glowing with a green light. However, the moment the magic armor was activated, it suddenly threw a punch at Qin Zhao. Caught off guard, Qin Zhao was punched in the face and took a few steps back. What the hell? Guild leader, this is the setting of the magic armor. The energy supply has changed, but the program won't change. Guild leader, control this thing first. I'll try to see if I can change the setting. Qin Zhao controlled the magic armor just like before. If he controlled it, it would use up more energy. Before long, it would lose power again. However, Qin Zhao was the one who provided it now, so he could give it energy at any time. When Qin Zhao controlled the magic armor, he realized that the thing seemed to be stronger. Did this mean that his immortal power was of a higher level? This made Qin Zhao feel a little pleased. Ruan Faxibin kept trying. Qin Zhao could not understand what he was doing. As the saying went, different professions were worlds apart. In terms of power, Qin Zhao was miles ahead of Ruan Faxben. But in terms of alchemy, Ruan Faxben was a solar system ahead of Qin Zhao. Qin Zhao only understood 1 or 2 of Ruan Faxben's 10 steps. For example, he could brand new runes on the armor. Okay, guild leader, let go and try. Qin Zhao loosened his grip on the magic armor. As expected, the magic armor did not continue attacking. Have you completely controlled it? No, I just erased its original magic commands. Ruan Faxben shook his head. As for how to write new magic commands, I have no idea. I need to study ancient Greek. Qin Zhao knocked on the magic armor, but it didn't react at all. It looked like a dead object. Chen Zhao raised his hand and started pressing on the magic armor through the air. There was still no reaction. Guild leader, you'll destroy this thing completely. Ruan Faxpen stopped Chen Zhao from doing anything further. Fine. Chen Zhao let go of the magic armor. The magic armor that had been loosened fell to the ground like a piece of scrap metal, and the magic metal on its body let out a metallic cry. Then Chen Zhao went to find West. He told him about his gains today. Guild leader, you're saying that the English gang is actually looking for something? Yes, we don't know what it is yet. But if we can get it first, we might be able to take the initiative. But we don't even know what they're looking for. No, it's not like we don't have any clues. First, consider their identity. Since it's related to Ares, the god of war from Olympus, what they're looking for is probably related to Olympus too. Check all the museums and private collectors in LA to see if they have anything related to Olympus. Of course, it might also be related to ancient Greece. That's a good direction to investigate, but it'll probably be very troublesome. After all, the people who can collect these things probably have a strong background. Even we can't easily snatch their collection. Let's investigate first. We don't have any clues right now, so it's useless to think too much. Even if we can't get the collection, we can at least monitor it. If they use violent methods to snatch it, we won't be unresponsive. Chapter 2798. In the next 3 days, many things happened in LA. Even the police, who had headaches when it came to gangs, were dumbfounded by these events. The gang leaders were killed one by one. Of course, every time something like this happened, it wasn't just one gang leader who died. Most of the time it was a brutal massacre. If it was less than 2 digits, then it might be considered mild. Of course, this also attracted the attention of the other big bosses of the gangs. Most of the big bosses of the gangs were on high alert. Some cowardly ones turned themselves in to the police. This kind of mafia boss who sought the police's protection was indeed quite fresh and refined. But this couldn't guarantee their safety. The deaths continued. Even the police couldn't save their lives. The police didn't even know how the gang leader they were protecting died. They only knew that he suffocated to death. But the gang leader protected by the police didn't fall into the water. Plus, he wasn't in a confined space. No one could figure out what had happened, except for the people involved. Bodhi wasn't the one who did it. Bodhi was strong, but he couldn't suffocate someone from afar. Chen Zhao was the one who did it. But Chen Zhao made the gang leader's death the same as Bodhi's. Of course, it was to make people think that Bodhi was the one who did it. Bodhi killed until LA became a river of blood. His younger brother, Tim, was in charge of taking over the empty territories. As for those who didn't listen, or those who thought that the boss was dead, the second boss could take over. Of course, Bodhi would do a second sweep. Of course, the mastermind behind all this was none other than Chen Zhao. It was Chen Zhao. Chen Zhao still firmly believed that, as long as he killed until blood flowed, he would definitely be able to return peace to the world. There weren't many people in the world who weren't afraid of death. At least Bodhi and Tim weren't stubborn people. The police didn't even dare to announce the number of gang deaths every day. If they really dared to announce it, it might really cause chaos or even upheaval. These 3 days were the toughest. 3 days later, the situation suddenly improved. The number of gang deaths dropped, because the gang leaders were all afraid of death, although they said that they lived a life of blood on the edge of a knife. However, they had never experienced such a terrifying experience of a bloody storm. Every day, a few gang leaders were killed, plus Tim's activities. No matter how stupid they were, they knew that this was a fight for territory. In the past, they might have struggled a little, but now they could only hope that they could escape the trap and leave the group. Tim probably hadn't even thought about it. One day, he could rule over all of Los Angeles, become the underground king of Los Angeles. Of course, he would be even happier if Chen Zhao wasn't here. Chen Zhao was the real boss behind the scenes. In fact, Chen Zhao had been the main attacker for the past few days. Most of the time, he was by Chen Zhao's side. He told Chen Zhao about every power and boss on the streets. Of course, he had also witnessed Chen Zhao's cruel side. Most of the time, Chen Zhao's attacks weren't bloody, but strange. Chen Zhao would choose to do it indoors and in private places. He wouldn't do it in crowded places like restaurants or theaters. Or perhaps he could create some accidents. For example, when a gang leader was driving, his car suddenly rushed over the railing and fell into the sea 20 to 30 meters high. When he was fished out, it was already completely cold. This was considered normal, but he had also seen some deaths that were extremely abnormal. He saw a gang leader crying while hanging himself on a crooked tree. In 5 days, Tim had completely taken control of all the gangs in Los Angeles. He also received a resounding title, Emperor of Darkness. This title sounded like a big boss, but Tim himself was very careful. He was afraid that he would be like those gang leaders and receive a free lunch for no reason. So, he would carry out and complete all of Chen Zhao's orders with 120% attitude. Although there had been a bloody storm in Los Angeles in the past 5 days, but soon peace came. No matter how loud the objections were, Tim insisted on carrying out Chen Zhao's orders. Los Angeles had to stabilize. Those who were unwilling and still wanted to take advantage of the situation were basically gathered by Tim. Then they were taken over by Chen Zhao to participate in the reclamation project. The people who were most surprised by the change in the situation in Los Angeles weren't the citizens or the police, but the news media. Recently, the media had been focusing on the vicious cases that had happened that day. However, it was as if all the vicious cases had disappeared overnight. Even the so-called normal crime rate seemed to have disappeared. Even the dark streets had become brand new. Of course, the media didn't know what had happened, but the police did. They found out that it was Tim. But no matter how deep they investigated, they couldn't find anything. The information they had on Tim was still stuck at the time when he was just a hooligan. They guessed that there was someone behind Tim, but they couldn't find out who it was. To their relief, Tim's principles were similar to the wild boar king in the past. He was also doing illegal things, but at least he wouldn't let his subordinates smash things in public. President, the situation in Los Angeles is under control, West said. In the past few days, he'd cooperated and used political power to suppress the police's investigation. Yes, it's about time. Chen Zhao nodded. Next, gather those scumbags and pour gasoline on them, or send them to Africa to dig for diamonds. President, I think it's better to keep them. We're spiritualists, not gangs. They're a good source of information. We don't need to pay them. We just need to pass on our requests, and they'll bring us the information we need, at least in Los Angeles. This is different from my original intention. My original intention was to get rid of all the scumbags. I just suddenly feel that they're a good source of information. Plus, President, they can't be killed all. If China can, why can't LA? The political system is different. The main body of government in China has nothing to do with gangs. But this is the United States. Almost every politician is more or less involved with those scumbags. Do you know how many politicians have contacted Tim these days? Chapter 2799. West didn't have much interest in gangs at first. Or rather, he naturally looked down on them. But in the past few days, he realized that it was so convenient to control a gang. They might not be of much help, but it was so easy to gather information. Not only that, but they also had some ways to get magic materials. That was why West had risen up. He wanted to keep the gangs in L.A. and control them completely. Even if you kill all the gangs in L.A., new ones will appear in less than 3 months. To put it bluntly, it's a product of market demand. That's because you didn't kill enough and weren't ruthless enough, Chen Zhao said. You won't have a chance like this every time. President, you can slaughter the gangs as you please. The government also needs to consider the stability of the situation. West seemed to have guessed Chen Zhao's thoughts. He continued, President, this place will never have the same environment as China. Qin Zhao's idea was to make L.A. have the same social environment as China. Girls wouldn't be in danger walking on the streets at night. The shops wouldn't close at 4 in the afternoon. But this could only exist in Chen Zhao's imagination. There was almost no possibility of it being realized. Qin Zhao planned to use slaughter to achieve peace. Unless Chen Zhao was willing to expose his identity and stand against the government, he wanted to show his power to the world and announce his stance. Otherwise, Chen Zhao's plan would never be realized. Humans were creatures that pursued profit. No matter how terrifying the legends were in L.A., they would only be legends. As long as there were benefits, humans wouldn't be scared off by mere legends. So, Qin Zhao's plan was just a dream. President, actually controlling those gangs in our hands is the safest choice. Instead of letting them grow wildly, why don't we draw a circle around them and restrict their growth? At the same time, we can make them work for us. Fine, I won't care about this anymore. Do as you see fit. Things didn't go as he wished, but Chen Zhao knew that he couldn't do whatever he wanted. He still had to consider the bigger picture. How's the investigation going? When the England gang ruled Los Angeles for a short time, they did give orders to the other vassal gangs to collect information about ancient Greek relics. They collected all kinds of information and did not point to anything. So I suspect that even the person who gave the order to the England gang did not know what he was looking for, West said helplessly. So, we only have one general direction now. We only know that they are looking for ancient Greek relics or something from Olympian mythology. As for what exactly they are looking for, we don't know. Is that what you mean? Yes, West nodded. This was very difficult. Even the England team did not know what to look for. Even if these people wanted to set up a trap, there was nothing they could do. West said, I have an idea, but I'm not sure if it will work. What idea? Let's assume that if the English gang doesn't know what they're looking for, then can we fabricate such a thing out of thin air and then release it through the gangs or the media to lure the English gang into the trap? Qin Zhao raised an eyebrow. West was a sly old fox. He could even think of such a method. How do we do it, exactly? First, through the media, publish some supernatural reports, and then direct the reports to the thing we set up. It's best if we find some researchers to publish some related comments. Then, through the gangs, we can send some mixed news so that the English gang cannot tell the truth from the lies. The plan seemed good, but there was a big problem. Such a complicated plan had a big premise. The English gang did not know what they were looking for. This was all West's own guess based on the information he had. If the English gang had a clear goal, then they would be like clowns amusing themselves by doing this. Of course, they had no better idea at the moment. Then what do you think we should use to disguise it as an ancient Greek relic? To attract enough attention, we definitely need a magic tool. Or we can get Ruan Faxburn to make a magic tool. It's best if it's far away from Los Angeles. It can't be near Los Angeles. Otherwise, if a war breaks out, the impact will be very bad. See? How about it? Chen Zhao asked. It's possible, but what can be discovered in the sea? It feels too deliberate. Then put it far away. Don't put it near Los Angeles. You can even put it in Mexican or Canadian waters. Then, what should we put it in? It definitely needs some strange phenomenon to be discovered. Then find a small island. Are there any uninhabited islands in the Mexican waters that we can use as a discovery site? Then we can create some strange phenomena on the island or get some media to go there. No, it's best to make it look like it was discovered by accident, West said. West said, since it's a trap, we can't make it too obvious. Everything has to be an accident. The two started planning carefully. First, they decided to use a magic tool. Second, they had to change the media to the recording site of a variety show. Qin Zhao had to contact someone for this. He had to find a show about survival in the wild and have them go to the island to record the show. Then, they would accidentally discover a divine item left behind from ancient times. Because the show was going to be broadcasted on TV, They couldn't make too many strange phenomena. It'd be best if it looked right but wasn't. If it was broadcasted on TV, it would only cause controversy and not panic. As for how they were going to create such a strange phenomenon, that would depend on their standards. Since the plan was made, the next step was to implement it. Chen Zhao didn't have many connections in this area, although he knew some people in Hollywood. Those people in Hollywood made movies. They had nothing to do with variety shows. Of course, it was good that this was America. There was nothing that money couldn't solve. If there really was, it was only because they didn't have enough money. West went to find Rowan Faxburn to see if he could create a magic tool that met their requirements. Chen Zhao contacted Stephen and asked him to help pull some strings to contact the TV station. However, Chen Zhao had to discuss the details personally. Chapter 2800. Mirror Lake Manor welcomed a guest. Hello, Mr. Chen. I'm the consul of SC Broadcasting Corporation. You can call me Scully. SC Broadcasting Corporation wasn't one of the 5 major broadcasting media groups in America. In fact, it was a small company. It mainly operated a local TV station in California. Its coverage was also extremely limited. Of course, SCTV still had a certain market share in California. This also ensured that they wouldn't starve to death. Of course, this scale of coverage and market share also meant that they wouldn't have a good life. In the end, Chen Zhao decided on SCTV because it was enough, even if he had to find the 5 major TV stations and give them more money. Their answers might not be better than SCTV's. They would also be easier to communicate with. This was because part of Dash and Beer's advertisement was also given to SCTV. Mr. Chin, I heard that you have business to discuss with our TV station, right? Scully asked. Can you make any decision? I'm the consul. As long as we're not talking about selling the TV station, I have the right to make decisions. I'd like to ask, Chen Zhao asked. Does your TV station have any plans to produce outdoor variety shows? No plans for now, Scully said, shaking his head. Then, if I need you to produce such a show and broadcast it while producing, how much will it cost? Chen Zhao asked. Mr. Chin, this isn't in our plan. It'll affect our show's broadcast plan. I don't want to discuss this with you. I'm asking, how much will it cost? Mr. Chen, I'm afraid we really can't work together. When Scully stood up, Chen Zhao still looked at him calmly. Dash and Beer will broadcast on another TV station next season, Chen Zhao said calmly. Scully, who was about to leave, stopped and looked at Chen Zhao in shock. Mr. Chin, this will probably affect Dash and Beer's sales. SC isn't the only TV station in Los Angeles, Chen Zhao said disapprovingly. Even if you find any of the 5 major TV stations, it'll only cost $1 or $2 million more. In fact, Dash and Beer's commercial has already been broadcast on those TV stations. To me, it'll just increase the duration of the commercial. In Los Angeles, you could really do whatever you wanted with money. In addition, the money your TV station owes Citibank will start to collect from you next month. For the current Chen Zhao, he didn't need to use any other methods to coerce a CTV. In his eyes, SCTV was just a small group. All he had to do was call his financial butler. SC television station would be under pressure from all sides. Mr. Chin, it's just business cooperation. There's no need for it to escalate to business suppression. Kelly's expression was very ugly. I am stating a fact. Chen Zhao shrugged. Although I might not actually do what I said later, I just want to tell you that you need to learn to compromise when necessary. In fact, it wouldn't be difficult for him to buy SCTV. However, as a Chinese, if Chen Zhao wanted to buy a TV station, even if it was just a local one, the government would still intervene. Chen Zhao only wanted to produce and broadcast a show, so he didn't need to spend so much money on a TV station. Okay, Mr. Chin, let's talk about the details of our cooperation. Scully sat down before Chen Zhao again. Just as Chen Zhao had said, Compromise was sometimes the best choice. First, let's talk about the production cost, Shirkelly said. What kind of wilderness show do you plan to produce? Survival type? Or exploration type? Or a science and education program? Shirkelly didn't ask why Chen Zhao wanted to produce such a show. Why did he have to broadcast it on a TV station? The world of the rich was like this. All kinds of weird ideas were possible. All three are fine, Chen Zhao asked. Which one has the largest audience? Survival and exploration type of shows are the mainstream right now. They have a large audience. In the past few years, our TV station has also thought about producing these kinds of shows, but we're limited by the coverage of the TV station. It's hard to match the investment and profits, so we gave up on the idea. How much does it cost to produce these two types of shows? Tell me a range. That depends on what level Mr. Chin is planning to do. It could be hundreds of thousands or even millions of USD. It could also be millions or tens of millions of USD. It depends on whether the show is broadcasted, whether the guests are ordinary people or celebrities, or if he directly invites a professional team of this type. Then, I want the best production and a professional team, Qin Zhao said. Excellent production costs at least 5 million USD. A professional team costs about 1 million USD. If it's a famous team, the price will double. At the same time, according to the number of episodes, the production cost of each episode will increase by about 1 million USD. Mr. Chin, is it convenient for you to reveal the specific content of the program? Exploration type. Search for and discover some lost relics, the kind that are not famous but are scattered all over the American continent. However, they have not been completely destroyed by modern civilization. Find the relics through some folklore. There is such a small island in the Mexican Sea, and the residents along the coast have some legends about the relics of this island. My request is that the first issue be about this island and the relics. Shirkelly thought for a while. Mr. Chin, your idea is not bad. The process of exploration and deciphering can indeed attract a lot of viewers, but the cost, with the influence of our television station, it will be very difficult to recoup the cost of an exploration program of this scale. Also, if we change our program's broadcast plan, Mr. Chan will need to compensate us. That's not a problem. I just want to know how much investment is needed. Mr. Chin, how many episodes do you plan to produce? Let's follow the standard and produce 12 episodes, Qin Zhao said. As for the compensation to your TV station, 5 million and a 3-year advertising contract with Dashin Beer. Also, count the show as me renting the broadcast time. The normal fee is enough. Shirkelly laughed. He knew that Chen Zhao would be so generous. He wouldn't have been so hostile just now. Of course, since I'm paying to produce and broadcast, the copyright belongs to me. Also, I want 80% of the advertising revenue. No problem, right? Of course, no problem. Chapter 2801. Although Shackley was a greedy businessman, he was at least organized. Shackley was a greedy businessman. Qin Zhao was paying for the production and rental of the broadcast time. This time, slot belonged to Qin Zhao, so it was normal that most of the income belonged to Qin Zhao. The time belonged to Qin Zhao. It was normal that most of the income belonged to Qin Zhao. It seemed that Chen Zhao had something to ask of them. In reality, Qin Zhao was the leader. They weren't the only TV station, but they were tightly controlled by Chen Zhao. So, if Shackley dared to make any excessive requests, Qin Zhao wouldn't be ruthless, ignoring everything else. Just Chen Zhao's Citibank pressuring them. They wouldn't be able to breathe. A media company like SCTV station didn't starve to death, but most of the time they owed the bank a lot of money. They were the type that would pay when they had money in one season. If they didn't have money in the next season, they wouldn't pay for now. The bank's tightening policy was a matter of life and death for them. Once the bank tightened its policy, they might have to eat dirt for an entire season. As for whether Qin Zhao had the influence to influence the bank, no, he definitely could. Just the manner in front of him plus the dozens of luxury cars in the garage when he parked the car. He kept talking about the production cost of millions and tens of millions. With so much spare money, his assets could definitely be multiplied by 100 times. This is a check for $20 million. Of course, you can't cash it now. You have to wait until the contract is signed, Qin Zhao said. My lawyer will contact you tomorrow. Okay, I understand. As for the final production price, I'll refund any overpayment and make up for any shortfall. Okay, that's it for now, Qin Zhao said. I need to go back and do some preparations. I won't disturb you anymore. Please. Then, Qin Zhao contacted Alex and asked her to help draft the contract. Chen, I'm your lawyer, not your assistant, Alex said, somewhat annoyed. So you need to give me extra compensation. Isn't my business within your scope? I'm only responsible for giving you legal aid and advice. I can't help you draft the contract or calculate the budget. What's the difference? If you have any questions about the contract, or if you need to reconfirm the contract when you sign it, I can help. But if you want me to draft a contract, that's too much. But neither of my assistants knows how to do it. Don't talk to me about them. Are they your assistants? I think they are more like your nannies. Alex was speechless. Qin Zhao had used an assistant as a nanny and a lawyer as an assistant. Forget it. I'll introduce you to a legal assistant, a girl. Qin Zhao thought for a moment and asked, other than law, what other services can she provide me? If you're willing to pay a higher salary, you can use her as a babysitter. How much is it? She's still an intern who just graduated. Her monthly salary doesn't need to exceed $10,000. 10,000 US dollars? Intern? Is the salary requirement for law graduates that high? No, it's just because she graduated from Harvard and she doesn't mind being a part-time nanny. All right then, when can she report? Anytime. Let her sign the contract first. Qin Zhao agreed right away and added another assistant. Alex was a reliable person, so Qin Zhao trusted her judgment. After all, Zephyr and Portia were indeed not enough for now. Zephyr was fine. She was hard-working enough. On the other hand, Portia was much more lazy. She worked hard every 2 days. If not for the fact that she still owed Qin Zhao a huge sum of money, Qin Zhao really wanted to make her eat dirt. The next morning, Portia and Zephyr came. Then, an unfamiliar young girl appeared. She had waist-length blonde hair and was not tall. She was probably only 160 centimeters. She looked like she was in her early 20s, but she was actually 25. She was a rare kind of immaturity among Caucasians. Qin Zhao had seen her information. Alex had sent it to him last night. She was a top student from Harvard Law School. Alex had also said a few more things about her. Apparently, she owed Alex a huge sum of money. When she was an intern, she also had 3 part-time jobs, including being a clerk at a 24-hour convenience store. Alex knew that she needed money urgently, which was why she dumped her to Qin Zhao. You're Navika, Lena? Yes, Mr. Chen. Ms. Alex recommended me to come here. What did Alex tell you? How much is the salary here? No vacation, Navika, Lena said. If needed, I'll be available 24/7. I can do whatever you need me to do. The weekly salary is $3,500. If I can do this job in half a year, I can ask for a 150% raise. Qin Zhao thought for a moment. It was much higher than what Alex had told him before. So, Qin Zhao did not agree immediately. Do you know that your current salary request has already exceeded the income of most middle-class families? And you're asking for a 150% raise in half a year? This means that your monthly income will exceed $20,000. Even most lawyers don't earn as much as you do. Other than a law degree, I also have a degree in financial management. I'm also the champion of California's women's mixed martial arts competition. I can also be your bodyguard. I also have a racing license, a non-commercial pilot's license, and a diving license. I was also a member of the national shooting team, although I never participated in the Olympics. Chen Zhao grinned. So you're pretty good at fighting? Navika Lena remembered that when she came in, she saw some fitness equipment scattered in the yard. There were sandbags hanging under the tree poles, as well as wooden dummies. It seemed that her boss was also a fitness and fighting enthusiast. Sir, I'm the champion of the women's division. I'm confident that my skills are better than anyone else's. But my skills aren't enough to make up for my weakness. So if you want to fight with me, I can only make you look bad. I can't guarantee that I can beat you. Navika Lena's meaning was simple. If a man like you fought with me, I might not win, but I could make your face blossom. She felt that as long as Chen Zhao had some dignity, he wouldn't ask to fight with her. Do you think you can beat her? Chen Zhao pointed at Zefra, who was watching TV with Portia. Her? Navika Lena looked at Zefra. The girl looked even younger than her. Of course, yes. Zefra, Chen Zhao called. When Zefra heard Chen Zhao's call, she was still dumbfounded. You guys can talk. Why are you talking about me? Don't you know that I've already retired? Boss, what's up? Chen Zhao looked at Navika and said, as long as you can beat her, I can give you a 150% raise right now. Of course, if you can't do it, I'll cancel the 150% raise after half a year. How does that sound? Navika nodded. Chapter 2802. Navika looked at Refra's body, which looked even thinner than her. When she'd participated in the mixed martial arts competition in California, she'd relied on her body to trick her opponents and win. But she couldn't tell that Refra knew how to fight too. In the end, Refra glanced at Navika. Don't fight. You're bullying me. Boss, you're a respectable person. You shouldn't do such a despicable thing. With that, Refra sat back down in front of the TV. What Refra said was what she was thinking. Chen Zhao was too shameless. They weren't on the same level at all. California women's mixed martial arts competition? To Refra, that was like a kindergarten competition. Navika had heard Refra say that she wouldn't fight. She'd thought that Refra was scared of her. But why did she feel that something wasn't right? The girl seemed to be saying that Refra was bullying her. She didn't sound like she was bullying her. Chen Zhao wasn't bullying her. Girl, I won't bully you. If you can trip me, I'll lose. How's that? Navika didn't want to bully Refra at first. Mainly, she was envious of Chen Zhao's conditions. If she won, she could get a 150% raise. $20,000 a month was such a generous income. Even if she worked as a lawyer for 10 years, she might not have such a high salary. But now, if she won against this girl, she could have it immediately. She was very tempted. Just then, Portia was interested too. Boss, if Refra wins, how about I get a raise? How's that? Huh. You want to eat shit, right? Refra looked at Navika and reminded her kindly, Navika, you can't beat me. Navika suddenly approached Refra. We'll know after we fight. Chen Peiran looked at the aggressive Navika Lena with great interest. He didn't expect this woman to be so aggressive. Navika didn't know where Refra came from. If she were in the ring, she would most likely be knocked down by a punch. But she felt that Refra was easy to deal with, as long as she defeated Refra cleanly. Then he would directly become a high-paid person. In the end, Zafra, who didn't want to fight at first, saw Navika Lena's aggressiveness. He grabbed Navika Lena's right arm with one hand, choked her neck with the other, and lifted her into the air with one hand. Ah, put her down, put her down. Portia cried out hurriedly. Zefra would strangle Navika Lena to death by holding her neck in the air. At this moment, Navika's legs were kicking wildly. She was dumbfounded. How would she know what kind of person Zefra was? In the past, even the strongest opponents she had encountered could not lift someone in the air with one hand. How much strength would that require? Even for a man, it was rare for a man to do this to a woman. Zefra gently put Navika on the ground. Navika Lena did not continue to attack. To be honest, Refra's attack had completely destroyed her worldview. Zevra's slender figure and her on-the-spot reflexes and strength did not match her size at all. Navikalina knew that the girl in front of her was much stronger than her. Even in the Olympics, she would probably be a king-level figure. Navikalina, I'm glad you joined. Your salary will be fixed in a short time. You don't have any objections, right? Chun Zhao smiled at Navikalina. Navikalina wanted to cry. How could she be so hot-headed as to agree? Half a year was fine. It wasn't that long. Now, her request for a raise was killed in the cradle. Navikalina wanted to open her mouth several times to deny the bet. In the end, Chun Zhao's words killed her thoughts. If you don't agree with this result, please leave. Navikalina was helpless. What else could she do? Even her current salary far exceeded the salary she received as an intern by Alex's side. Even a normal lawyer would only get this much. So, she could only accept this result. There was no other choice. Although Navikalina was no longer passionate, she still had to do what she had to do. In the beginning, Navikalina was a little unhappy with Zefra, but she soon got over it. Even if she had to blame someone, she should blame Qin Zhao for digging a hole for her. Zefra reminded herself. She was the one who was greedy. After a day, Navikalina was already familiar with Portia and Zefra. There was no barrier. When women were together, they always got along quickly. If they didn't get along, they would reconcile. If they didn't, they would break up. When they were close, they would live and die together. When they weren't, they would want each other to die on the spot. In the afternoon, Scully came with his secretary. The secretary was also as pretty as a flower. Her eyes were like peach blossoms. She even carried some fragrant dust when she walked. She was probably just for show. After entering the Mirror Lake Manor, the secretary kept throwing flirtatious glances at Qin Zhao. Of course, Qin Zhao wasn't really interested in her. Mr. Scully, here's the contract. Please take a look. Okay. Scully and the secretary started looking at the contract. Most of the time, this female secretary was not doing the work of a secretary. However, she was still more serious when she was working. When Scully asked about the terms of the contract, the secretary could give him an accurate explanation. Qin Zhao retracted his previous thoughts. It seemed that the secretary was really talented. Because they'd already discussed the details yesterday, the contract didn't deviate from the agreement. Qin Zhao didn't hide any traps in the contract either. So, the signing process was quite smooth. Scully hadn't finished the budget report yet, but it was estimated that it wouldn't exceed $20 million. A show worth $20 million was already a big production, no matter where it was. Under normal circumstances, SCTV wouldn't invest so much money into a show without market research. But now they had a financial backer like Qin Zhao and Scully's help. So, the project ran very quickly. After signing the contract, it was completed in less than a day. According to Qin Zhao's request, the sooner the project was done, the better. If SCTV dragged it for 3 to 5 months, it would probably be too late. This was where the benefits of money were shown. There was nothing that money couldn't solve. If there was, it could only be because they didn't have enough money. In 3 days, the production team was almost gathered. They were ready to start filming at any time. On the other hand, Rouen France's progress wasn't that ideal. Chapter 2803. Rouen, when did you become so useless? You can't even make a simple magic tool? Is our request that hard to fulfill? Qin Zhao reprimanded Rouen Faxben. His and West's requirements weren't too high, right? Was it really that hard to fulfill? It matched the weapons of the ancient Greeks. It could glow and give people pressure. It could trigger wind, water, thunder, fire, and so on. It didn't need to be too big. After all, they wanted to use it to film exploratory shows, not supernatural ones. They also didn't want to use it to create panic. President, apart from the glow, the other requirements are hard to fulfill. You even want to gather them on one thing. I think I'm pretty good, but I'm not invincible yet. Qin Zhao pursed his lips in disdain. Last time when I gave you an alchemy book, you said that you were confident you could become the best alchemist in half a year. There's not much time left. I feel like you're still far from being the best alchemist. One of them, Ruan added. Also, where did you get that alchemy book? Some of the materials needed for alchemy are unheard of. That's why my progress is slower than planned. Chen Zhao rolled his eyes. He'd gotten that alchemy book from the chief alchemist of his territory in Hell, Felt Nitek. Most of the alchemy spells recorded in the alchemy books were unique to the infernal realm. Naturally, most of the materials needed were from Hell. It would be strange if Ruan Faxi could get it. Also, it's a bit difficult to make a magic tool that matches the ancient Greeks' taste. The style is also difficult. The appearance of the magic tool also needs to match the alchemy array and rune, Ruan said. Ruan Faxben said, that's also why there's such a huge difference in the style of magic props between different countries. It's because every country or civilization has a huge difference in their magic civilization. It's very difficult to create something that matches the standard of the Huaxia supernatural world, but has the same function as the European supernatural world. Ruan Farsben looked at Qin Zhao helplessly. I know nothing about ancient Greek alchemy. I don't even know ancient Greek. It's almost impossible to create a magic tool that fits the requirements in such a short time. Ruan Farsben looked at Qin Zhao helplessly. Qin Zhao felt a headache coming on. Originally, he thought that Ruan Fazabin would have the least problems. His request wasn't that high, right? He wasn't asking him to create a divine artifact. He didn't even need it to be powerful. To put it bluntly, Chen Zhao's requests were just to lighten the mood. In actual combat, it was not much stronger than a fire stick. But even so, Ruan Faxi still had a headache. Time waits for no one. The communication with SCTV was almost done. The filming would start in 2 days. After many investigations, Qin Zhao and West had already locked onto a deserted island in the Mexican Sea. There are some ancient ruins on that deserted island. The natives along the coast also spread some specious legends. They planned to use the program's production team to process and package those legends, steer the conversation toward the Olympian myth. Of course, they also discussed that this was the American continent. It was a Pacific Ocean away from the Olympian myths. The civilization and culture of the two were not in the same system. Therefore, it was impossible to directly name the Olympian mythology. It was just a specious point of view. Moreover, myths and legends had a lot of literary elements to begin with. Therefore, many illogical things could resonate with people as long as they were explained properly. But now, they lacked this important prop. It would greatly reduce the effect of the show. It was fine if the effect was greatly reduced. Their original intention was to attract the English gang. If they couldn't achieve this effect, all their previous investments would be for nothing. As for the final success or failure of the show, Chen Zhao didn't really care. Qin Zhao thought for a moment and took out his black trident. What do you think of this? Qin Zhao asked. Ruan Faxben was stunned for a moment. Of course. He knew that this was Chen Zhao's weapon. But Chen Zhao rarely took out his own weapon. Ruan Faxi reached out to take the black trident. But before his palm could touch it, a great feeling of terror surged into his heart. Before his hand stopped, he was already grabbing the black trident. The next moment, a terrifying power spread from his fingers to his entire body. Ruan Faxabin was sent flying. He was still coughing up blood in the air. Then his body smashed through the wall and he fell from the second floor. Chen Zhao hurriedly put away the black trident. The moment he jumped down, he checked on Ruan Faxi's situation. There were also quite a few people who heard the noise and looked down. They saw Ruan Faxi's terrible state and Chen Zhao jumping down. He had thought that Ruan had done something to piss Chen Zhao off and had been thrown down the stairs. Ruan Faxi was in a terrible state. All his bones were broken. When Chen Zhao helped Ruan up, His entire body was limp. He wouldn't die, but if there were no accidents, he wouldn't be able to escape paralysis. Chen Zhao chuckled bitterly. He could only take responsibility for his own trouble. Ruan Faxi couldn't say anything either. He knew that Chen Zhao didn't do it on purpose, but he was the first one to break the record. He was the first to be heavily injured by Chen Zhao. Ruan, it's fine. Just lie down for half a month. You won't die and there won't be any side effects. President, can you not take out such a dangerous thing next time? Ruan Faxi wanted to cry. He should have known that Chen Zhao could use it as a weapon. Let's not talk about the quality first. At the very least, its lethality was definitely not comparable to ordinary weapons. As expected, he didn't even touch it and almost died. Luckily, he reacted quickly and only suffered light injuries with all his bones broken. I promise. Speaking of which, can that weapon be used as the Sea King's trident? If I paint it gold, it should work, right? It can also control water. Ruan Faxi really wanted to yell, I'm already so injured. Can we not talk about this? President, can you suppress the Black Trident's aura? If you take it out, just the pressure alone will make a normal person have a heart attack within 100 meters. You can't even get a normal person to take a panoramic view of your weapon with a camera. I can't do that. Chen Zhao was helpless too. Ever since Old Turtle had modified this thing, it had changed. Ever since Old Turtle modified this thing, even Chen Zhao couldn't control it completely. Chapter 2804. Hello, Mr. Chen. I'm the director of the film crew, Fallowy Lysander. Hello, Mr. Scully has told you, right? Fallowy Lysander was a bearded man in his 60s, but he didn't look too old. On the contrary, he had the vigor of a dragon and a fierce tiger. He was the director of the field film crew hired by SCTV. The entire production team belonged to Fallowy Lysander alone. They had filmed many documentaries and exploratory programs, and they had even won many awards. Among them, there was also an exploration show that had once won the annual viewership ratings of exploration shows. Therefore, they were quite famous in the industry and were a very professional production team. Inviting them to film 12 episodes of the Lost Civilization exploration program cost Chen Zhao $5 million. There were a total of 25 people in the production team. Each of them had their own area of expertise, including the host. The Lost Civilization had a total of 12 episodes, with 3 episodes forming one unit. The first unit was naturally a deserted island in Mexico. That island was called Gongdu Island. Decades ago, there were still some Mexican indigenous tribes living there. However, because of Gongdu Island's harsh environment and lack of supplies, Gongdu Island's population was limited. Therefore, the Aboriginal tribes on the island either moved to the nearby coastline or died of old age on Gongdu Island. The residents of the nearby coastline also spread some legends about Gongdu Island. A few of the older generation had lived on Gongdu Island. They belonged to the group of people who directly entered the civilized society from primitive society. Therefore, they still retained many of the tribal customs and legends. Of course, their filming plan was to first interview the elderly who had migrated inland from Gongdu Island. Then he would go to Gongdu Island to film some content, and then do some further processing. They were an exploration program that leaned toward science and education, but they were definitely not a real science and education program. Actually, the core of the show was still an entertainment program, so it was natural to add some specious legends and supernatural interpretations. In any case, it was just cultural processing, and some legends were not scientifically verified. On the other hand, Chen Zhao set off with the film crew to Gongdu Island. In Chen Zhao's own words, it was a hobby of rich people. Of course, to compensate the team, Chen Zhao gave them $500,000. The money was given directly to Fallowy Lysander. In this team, Fallowy Lysander had the absolute right to speak. Therefore, it was necessary to build a good relationship with him. Mr. Chen, although I've never been to Gongdu Island, I've sent people to the coastal settlements nearby to communicate with the villagers. It's said that the environment on Gongdu Island is quite harsh, with a large number of venomous snakes and crocodiles, as well as many dangerous natural environments. Therefore, we can't be sure what unexpected situations we'll encounter. Even though we're a professional team, we can't give you any guarantees. You'd better be mentally prepared before you set off. Of course, I understand, Chen Zhao said politely. I've participated in many exploration teams, from Africa to the Amazon to the Caribbean. I've left my footprints everywhere. I'm not a veteran, but at least I have some experience. I'll try not to drag the team down. Facing Falui Lysander, Chen Zhao didn't act too overbearing. After all, they were in a cooperative relationship, and he was not his subordinate. Then I wish us success. Falui Lysander was quite satisfied with Chen Zhao's attitude. Moreover, since Chen Zhao had experience, he didn't have to worry about Chen Zhao making rude requests during the process. Falui Lysander had met such people in the past. He had once met a celebrity who participated in a filming project in the wilderness. The celebrity wasn't even an A-list celebrity, but he kept making things difficult for the team and dragging them down. Mr. Chin, do you have anyone with you? No, just me. Oh, good. Also, you have to prepare some equipment yourself. Tell me, I'll remember. Thick rain boots, gloves, a set of outdoor clothes, a thermos flintstone, a military knife. Of course, if you think it's necessary, you can add a semi-automatic pistol and a few bullets. Is that necessary? Usually not. Our team actually has some armed forces, Falui Lysander said with a smile. But for most amateurs, guns can calm people down. Falui Lysander smiled. Okay, but can you bring guns through customs? No, but Mr. Chin should have a way to find a way to get guns in Mexico. Do we need to bring food? We have compressed food. Can't we bring game? There are many uncertain risks associated with wild game, such as the disease it carries, the difficulty of handling it, or the danger it poses. Moreover, there's no guarantee of supply. That's why a film crew like us has to avoid contact with wild game as much as possible when filming in the wilderness. Once a member of the film crew is infected or injured by a wild animal, it'll be a big problem for the film crew. Delaying the filming schedule is a small problem, but more often than not, the film crew will have to face a lot of legal troubles. Can I bring my own food? Mr. Chen, it's best not to. If you bring non-compressed pasta and meat, you'll only be burdening yourself. Your burden will often become the team's burden. You said that you won't cause trouble for the team, so it's best to avoid some things if possible. Okay, Chen Zhao shrugged. Tomorrow's flight at 3 in the afternoon. It'll take 1.5 hours. At night, we'll reach the coastal village where we'll be filming. My people have already inspected the village. It's a good recreational area. There's a small resort there. Mr. Chen, you can rest there for a day. We need a day to film in the village. Okay. In fact, Chen Zhao had already inspected the village. It was indeed a good recreational area. It wasn't much worse than those holiday resorts. However, it didn't have public facilities and was much smaller, so it wasn't famous. Then, Falui Lysander explained many things to take note of. Falui Lysander's specialty wasn't in how much safety he knew. It was in his attitude, which was always to be on guard. He would try his best to prevent almost all dangers from happening instead of dealing with them after they happened. If not for the fact that Chen Zhao didn't have any interactions with him, Chen Zhao really wanted to recruit him.